All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the West Milwaukee School Board to order. Board Member Carr, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and then Sarah, would you call the roll?
Mr. Becker,
Here.
Mr. Keller,
Here.
Ms. Carr,
Here.
Mr. Verbos,
Here.
Mr. Lee,
Here.
Ms. Kaiser is excused, Ms. Deal,
Here.
Ms. Lee,
Here.
President Burns.
Present. All right. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Are there any modifications to the agenda tonight?
Tonight, we actually do have some modifications. One modification, I should say. 10.3, we're going to ask so we table that particular item and remove it from the agenda tonight, and we'll bring it back up next meeting.
All right. Thank you much. All right. That will take us to section 6, which is going to be our public budget hearing. And so those of you who aren't familiar with the process for the public budget hearings of the Wisconsin law requires all public school districts to hold an annual budget hearing. The West Milwaukee School District hearing typically takes place about a month before the school board votes on the budget for the current school year. The annual budget hearing offers the public a chance to review and provide input on the proposed budget for the 25-26 school year. With that, there will be two sections of public comments tonight. The first section will be focused specifically on the budget, with the second section consistent with our normal public comments sections that we have. So then following the presentation by Assistant Superintendent Mr. Norris, there will be an opportunity for those public comments and questions specifically related to the 2025-2026 budget. We will do our best to answer any straightforward questions at that time, and then any more complex or detailed inquiries will be addressed in the period that leads up to our formal action on the budget at the end of October. So with that said, I will turn it over to Mr. Norris.
Great. Well, thank you and welcome to our public budget hearing. So as Mr. President Burns said, this is an annual thing we do, and it offers the school board and the larger community kind of a glance into the state of the district's finances and kind of what we're intending for in the 25-26 school year. And as a note, everything we're going to discuss tonight is still projected. School finance in the state of Wisconsin is odd in that we are nearly a quarter of the way through our budget prior to the board formally approving our finalized revenues. So with that, we're going to jump right in. First slide here is our mission statement. So I know this is subject to change given the strategic plan workshop this evening, but currently our mission statement is every day this West Milwaukee School District focuses on equity through deeper learning, fostering a sense of belonging, and educates the whole child so every learner achieves success. Next slide is again, a lot of these things are required to formalize and outline the Board of Education. So you can see everyone that's here this evening. Our administrative cabinet here, everyone in the room. Kind of the budget adoption timeline, kind of what I just mentioned, the projection here is subject to these following dates. So really the next big date for us, third Friday in September, the pupil count is really the revenue count. So that includes students who attend our schools that are enrolled as residents and students who are resident members, students who live in the community who are attending other public schools. That is also, that's the biggest date for the school district in terms of revenue. On October 1st, the school district finalizes equalized property value. That's important as it outlines kind of the mill rate. Tonight, we have a projection that comes from Baird. And typically it's pretty close, but that doesn't get finalized by the state of Wisconsin Department of Revenue until October 1st. On October 15th, that's after school district audits are finalized with the state of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin can then finalize state aid. State aid's contingent upon two things: equalized value increases, more property poor or property rich districts. Sometimes they get, opposite can happen. And then also the final year spending. The more districts spend, the more aid they receive in the subsequent year. So those two things are huge components and ultimately impact our tax levy, which is approved by the Board of Education October 27th, and then certified to the state of Wisconsin November 10th. And then we jump right back in a month later to outline the budget calendar for the following year. So, budgets never sleep, I guess. That's kind of what the joke in the department ends up being. But that's kind of the next 3 months at a glance. So again, revisions from the preliminary budget hearing that we had a few months ago. Here are the things that have changed. Updated equalization aid based on equalized property value. Obviously, that updates the mill rate, updated AGR or adjusted AGR. And then the big one is going to be the formalized biennial budget. So we have those numbers now. We can run what that looks like for our school district. So this is what this looks like for the 25-27 school years, the next 2 years. On July 3rd, Governor Evers signed Senate Bill 45, which outlines the 25-27 state biennial budget into law. This year, that continues to include the $325 per pupil per state law until a change in legislation were to happen. The low revenue ceiling remains intact at $11,000 per pupil, or better known as categorical aid, remains at $742. Special education aid reimbursement went to 42% this year and to 45% the following year, which is up from 30%. But again, I want to mention that's not some certain, that's some sufficient, so that those dollars were, as you see tonight, are being budgeted at 40%. That's consistent with what we've seen in the past few years. So prior year dollars get inflated, meaning the 42% actually comes in closer to 40, right? And then an increase in the mental health, or the school-based mental health grant from the state of Wisconsin. At this point, we're proud to present to the board a balanced budget tonight, and we'll talk through what the changes have looked like over the past 3 months to do that with the administrative work on getting that balanced. So to kind of give a quick timeline, I think it's important for our staff and our community to see kind of how these things progress, because obviously how they happen sometimes dictates what that looks like, right? So on June 9th, the preliminary board workshop, at this time, the state budget had not been announced yet. We were at that time planning for $325 per pupil because that's state law. That was a balanced budget, okay? A month and 3 weeks later, a lot of things have changed, right? At that time, we'd received the state biennial budget that contained increases that fell short of our estimates. And at the same time, Title 2 through 4 had been frozen from the federal government. That was $500,000. Our health insurance renewal was at 23.9%. That is a deficit of $360,000. The state biennial budget has an increase of expenses for the school district here, about a little over $1 million by increasing open enrollment. We have a net difference out than in. That's a net expense to the district. And then we also, given the commitment for special education through the transfer of service process, there does exist a first year loss in that because we receive aid in the following year. So the way the state does, if you get reimbursed for $1,000 expense, they won't give you $1,000 in the first year because you're going to get 40 cents on the dollar back the following year. So if they gave you $1,000, you'd end up actually getting $1,040. So they won't do that. So the first year you take the $40 loss, and the next year you're made whole. So all those things in a bucket led to the $2.65 million deficit that we had previously communicated to the board and to our staff. So fast forward about a month later, where are we at today? So a couple of things have happened, and a lot of them just happened as part of the normal budget cycle. One, health insurance, as you guys know, came in at 11% with changes. That ends up being about a $700,000 or $800,000 swing from a $360 deficit to $480 surplus, right? Title 2 through 4 was released. We looked at running school budgets, elementary and intermediate, from 100 to 75%. That saved $250,000. Moving our SROs to Fund 80 is $325,000. Working with school services to reduce a bus, about $70,000. The mental health school-based services that was part of the biennial budget is about $150,000 of added money for 1 year, which is good news. We had a $200,000 flow-through carry forward that'll help this year. Moving $175,000 of custodial time and effort to Fund 80. We'll talk through that. Essentially, the time the custodians spend cleaning breakfast and lunch can be booked to Fund 80 or Fund 50. Thank you for the correction. And then reducing our Fund 46 transfer from $1 million to $500,000. So all of those things together brought us from 2.65 to balance. So that's really, really good news. So to get into how the school district calculates their revenue limit, it's really a straightforward calculation. So the first thing is we get resident membership, which happens the third Friday of September. That gets multiplied by our per pupil, and that is essentially the amount of money you get recurring. Beyond that, there are two other functions for which school districts get added revenue every year. One is called the non-recurring exemption. The first one is the declining enrollment exemption, which essentially is the amount of money you received previously, however much you got last year, they tier you down. So your membership's on a 3-year average. So if you had 8,000 kids 3 years ago, then 7,000, then 6,000, your average would be 7,000. Well, they're going to fund you at the 3-year average. So it allows school districts that when they're declining in enrollment, they get kind of a soft landing with revenue, right? So at some point you will be down to your enrollment, but it will take 3 years to do so. So that declining enrollment for us this year is 1.57 million. And that's part of the reason why our one-time non-recurring exemptions is so high. About 9.6 of that is private vouchers, okay? Our ongoing recurring exemptions, which this year is 7.24 million, that 5.8 of that is the recurring referendum. Next year, that will be baked into our per pupil. So next year at this time, that number will be down to whatever our transfer of service number is. But this year, it's considered a recurring exemption. Oops, been kicking the can down the road on that. Oops, sorry. And then the following year, that'll be in our per pupil. So the total revenue limit authority is just over $109 million for the school district. So what happens is once you have your revenue limit authority, it's subtracted by your equalization aid, which this year is projected to be 60.8 million. And what the difference is 48.196 million, which is the total allowable tax levy to the community. From there, the tax levy is broken out into 4 buckets. Number 1 is the revenue limit. You can see in the bottom left corner, that's the 48.196 million. The other 3 ways that the community is taxed from the school district is Fund 39, which is referendum debt, which you can see at the top left. The debt payment for the calendar year is 4.25 million, and then our Fund 80 levy is projected to be 3.825 million, bringing the total tax levy to 56.271 million. So to calculate the mill rate, it is the total school-based tax levy, which is 56.271 million, divided by the total equalized property value, which is 6.99 billion, times 1,000, gives you the projected mill rate of 805 for the school year. Part of the reason the mill rate is higher is because our equalized value, as you'll see here, is projected to decrease by 2.42%. So this is a good example of how levers in school finance can work. If your equalized value goes down, your mill rate goes up. But if your equalized value goes down, you may also see an increase in aid, which will also make your mill rate then move the opposite way. So the mill rate is really, it's important if you're interested in calculating the amount you will pay from your property value in taxes. But really, it's kind of an irrelevant figure because the mill rate moves as equalized value moves, right? So for example, when we projected equalized value at 7%, it brought the mill rate down to, I think it was 772. So just equalized value can substantially move that number. The more important number is the tax levy. You can see here on the far right, kind of a graph of how the tax levy and aid have moved together. And this year you can see the tax levy in yellow, far right in yellow moving up and aid not changing. So one of the biggest issues with the most recent biennial budget that you'll see in the news is that the state allocated for the first time in over a decade no new money into state aid, which is a tax levy. It's a way to manage property taxes, right? That along with the referendums is part of the reason the tax levy increase that we're going to show tonight, that'll be across the state of Wisconsin for most districts. The mill rate here, this is to show kind of the history here. You can see our mill rate in 15-16 was just under $10 and most recently in the high 6s and now near $8. But again, most of that is due to the equalized value dropping 2%. The state average was 8, so we're a net difference of 10. So 10% difference is 80 cents there. So that's a big reason for that. Okay, moving into Fund 10, the general fund. So Fund 10, Fund 21 and 27. Fund 10 is our general fund. 21 is our special revenue trust fund. That's going to be our special revenues of the schools. That's our Fund 21s our schools use for when they book receivables, fees, things, those go into school Fund 21 accounts. And then Fund 27 is our special education fund. This slide shows our Fund 10 revenues and Fund 27 revenues. About 80% of that is from property taxes and state aid. Other factors that we do receive, categorical aid for special education, or for categorical aid is going to be for all students. It's a kind of a per pupil basis, $742 per pupil. Open enrollment revenues for the students that we receive, and then federal grants and other funds alike. So our total Fund 10 and 27 revenues are 135 million, which is made up mostly of property taxes and state aid, along with federal dollars. Those include title money, flow through, Perkins, that's federal. State sources are going to be mostly state aid. That's going to be 60 million of that 75. AGR we receive for, it's called the Achievement Gap Reduction, formerly known as SAGE. That's used in elementary schools. That's about 3 million. Categorical aid is 5.6. Then you have common school funds in there at 700,000. So what does that include? So in terms of kind of focus and highlights, obviously could be a long list, but kind of some quick things that'll be going on in the district this year. We were able to give all staff a 9% salary increase through the referendum. 6% of that's from the referendum, 3% is from the CPI from 2024 or 2025, my apologies. The funding of our current professional educator compensation model, that's two different buckets, a $200 annual increase for returning employees, and then the micro credentials, which is it's a voluntary participation. District and school budgets, 75%. I mentioned that excludes Hale and Central due to athletics. Community Rec Center construction project phase 2 will be finishing up, I believe, mid-year this year. So that's good news and look forward to seeing that completed. We have our technology refresh that includes student iPads, elementary student teacher iPads, keyboards, and the new line panels district-wide. Some of that, I believe the panels, mostly all of that was paid for out of title dollars, which is great. And then lastly, curriculum refresh, K-12 social studies, 6-8 CTE courses, and K-12 music. So those are some of the highlights from different areas of the school district. In terms of expenses, Fund 10 and 27, about 66.5% of that salary and benefits, pretty consistent with previous years, ranges from about 63 to 66. 18% of that expense, though, of the school district's expenses is OE and vouchers. So we'll talk through that. Again, that's a number that we see a significant increase every year due to both the state budgets and also the WPCP, Wisconsin Parental Choice Program cap, which we'll talk through that in a few minutes. When you look at Fund 10 and Fund 27 projected expenses broken out separately, one thing I want to mention, this does not include the annual transfer because to Fund 10, it's an expense, and to Fund 27, it's a revenue, so you can't double book it. You'll actually be double booking expenses and revenues. Just kind of a quick note. But that ties out to be the 135 million that we showed before. Given that this year we've taken the approach of trying to formalize our caseloads for special education to try to support our students and our staff across the schools, I thought I'd take a moment because this is a big part of what we'll be doing in the next few weeks. Ann Locke's here. She's been working with our team on trying to develop and make our claim for transfer of service this year. So again, I know we talked about this, I think, in the spring, but again, to recap just quickly, the transfer of service is a mechanism that allows school districts to increase their revenue limit when taking over services previously provided by another government entity. So what that looks like is, the board formalizes a budget. We planned for 10 special education teachers. If post the approval of that budget, 10 more students move in and we have to hire another teacher, it's outside of our ability to plan. And we're federally required to provide services. So the school district on the 10th student in this example, assuming the caseloads are 10, is able to file a transfer of service claim for the teacher they have to hire to service the students. So when that looks like across, our school district, formalizing that process can make a substantial claim with the number of staff we've had to hire in the past year for that need. So anyway, I wanted to show that to kind of walk through what that looks like. So the process for that is we have written guidelines that are based on DPI and school district standard caseload ratios to determine if we would require additional staff. That way there's almost a trigger student when the X number of students come into the district with an IEP that gets filed with the state. The district they came from has to certify they have an IEP, that it's for that reason. And then we're able to get additional levy dollars up to the 42% because that's the 1 year we lose the 42% on. So The areas of TOS that we're focusing on are really, I would say pretty thorough here. Early childhood, cross-categorical service, intensive services, speech, SLP, OTs, PTs, visual impairment, hearing impairment. Not every area is hit by transfer of service. It depends on who moves in and where they come from, right? But how that works is caseloads are set at the beginning of the year with the number of students that we plan for. And really that's based on how many students we had the previous year, right? And then as students transfer in, we manage the ability to have caseloads at those levels. And then anything beyond that requires a transfer. Any transfer of student mid-year last year becomes a claim in September. So what that looks like this year, you can see across the district here is about 25 additional staff this year. So we had about 193 students move in with services that they came from another public school district. So that is far beyond our average. I think the previous year was a little over 100. And so these claims can vary. I think a couple of years ago it was 500,000, which really is about an $800,000 claim because you don't get funded for the categorical aid, right? The previous year was 280,000. This year it's going to be much more, 1.95, less the categorical aid is about 1.2. So that's what that looks like. So every year is a little different. Just to kind of give the board an update on that. Okay, shifting into funds 38 and 39. Funds 38 and 39 are going to be non-referendum debt service fund, and Fund 39 is our referendum debt service fund. This year we do have both. Fund 38 is going to be our energy efficiency. We're nearing the end of this. This is the second to last year. This year our revenues are 1.7 million and our expenses are 1.73 million because the expenses are paid on the fiscal year and revenues are on the calendar year. Essentially, we're levying for spring and fall, but our expenses are fall and spring. That's the reason they don't match. This year is our second to last year. Next year, it'll be about 800,000, and those dollars will shift into Fund 39 to help pay the referendum debt. Fund 39, as you can see here, similar story. Our levy this year for Fund 39, our referendum debt is 4.25 million. Our projected expenses for the I always mix it up. The fiscal year is 3.658 million. And that helps start to pay off our $70 million bond. This is kind of a timeline to show the debt service levy history. So you can see in blue, the Fund 38 debt has been tearing off. And you can see in 26/7 will be our final payment for that. And then in Fund 39, the payments will decrease as we make them over time. Okay. Shifting into our debt service and credit rating. So this is kind of I think another good story to tell because this is a great example of the district's financial position. So our credit rating had been previously at double A in S&P, AA minus, sorry, with S&P. When the referendum was passed, we went to bond to get the referendum formally into the district's finances. We had to get a credit rating update. Our credit rating jumped to a AA high grade, which might not seem like a huge jump, but that credit rating increase gave us an interest rate of 3.78, which was almost a whole point better. You can see in the bottom left corner here, when we were planning in May of 24, we were booking at 5.25%. Rates did fortunately come down a little bit towards the fall. And when we went to referendum finally in November, the interest rate that we were projecting was 4.75, and it got a whole point better because of our credit rating. So that's a significant savings. I mean, a lot of people look at bond rates similar to mortgage rates, like a whole point is a big deal, especially even like in personal finances, right? So great to see that. And ultimately it saves the community money, which is great. Fund 46 is our long-term capital trust fund. So as I mentioned, part of the balancing of the budget, we reduced the transfer to 500 or from $1 million to 500,000. Our planned expenses are about 1.25 this year, and those are just projections based on what could happen. So that could be less, that could be more, just depends on, what things happen this year that our facility needs. You can see our beginning fund balance this year is about 8.78 million. Given the revenues and expenses, the planned or projected fund balance at the end of the year will be about around 8 million. And this is a nice table to show kind of where we've been historically from, I guess, the inception of 46 all the way up to today. So we've been working really, really hard to grow that Fund 46 to be a nice place for facilities in case things come up. And it was really originated to help manage the the WAC, the track, the turf field, the complex essentially. So having a sizable fund balance there to manage that in case things come up is really needed. And as you can see, we've been able to maintain, that sizable balance. So last year, essentially all the projects we did, we ended with a positive surplus in 46 with getting a lot done, which is great. So, all right, Fund 49. This is our capital funds project for referendum. Our beginning fund balance with the referendum funds is 75 million. Again, we have around 4.8 million in Fund 49 already. So that's the reason that the number is higher than 70. We're projecting to make around $1.2 million in interest from the money with WISC. And we have planned expenses this year of just under 21 million with an ending fund balance of about $56 million. That count. The planned projects are here as seen, and I believe there's a workshop coming up on the referendum here at the end of the month to give an update on kind of what we're finishing and what we're planning to start. So that'll be coming here in the next few weeks. But ranging from roofing and repairs from Horseman, Irving, West Milwaukee, Hale, and Central. Obviously, the field house is about 50% of that 20 million is that project. And then looking for AC units and things like that coming in the spring, in the summer with bathroom remodels and other structural repairs. All right, moving along here. Fund 50 is our food service fund. As you guys know, we're in our, I think it's our fourth year now, or third or fourth year, getting all students eat breakfast and lunch free through CEP, which is great. And what's even good news is we've made a bunch of shifts and we're still able to financially sustain that. So I think it's a great opportunity for our families. Our revenues this year are projecting about 3.7 million. Our expenses we're projecting 3.8 million. That $100,000 loss really is of no issue given the fund balance we have in 50. One of the things DPI is kind of recommending to all school districts is you only really should have about 3 months of carrying expenses, which is about $900,000. So having a plan to cut into that is required from the state if you have a fund balance that exceeds 3 months. So this meets the obligation to the state. And again, we're trying to find creative ways to eat into those dollars that kind of helps the district at the same time. So, all right. Fund 73 is our employee benefit trust fund. Most of what we'll talk about tonight is our OPEB plan, essentially, which is made up of two components: undefined benefits for grandfathered employees and HRAs for active defined employees when we went through that plan in 22-23. So this year, the projection for revenues is about $1 million. We're projecting about 675,000 of forfeitures. We'll make about 75,000 in interest and have 250,000 in contributions. It's kind of an interesting thing to plug here. So the 250,000 in contributions is due to our OPEB liability, our expense every year decreasing. So if you can go back to 2018-19, our expense every year was about $4.4 million for people who didn't work here, right? And so that number now is down to $2.5 million, which is great. And so trying to find a way to shift those dollars in real time to keep this funded has been kind of a priority. And as you can see, balancing revenues and expenses, which that is pretty close to balance, is a good thing. With our fund balance at 2.176 million, the plan is really, I think, really working well and underway. Currently, we have about 67% of employees on the defined benefit plan. So, about 30-ish% left to go, but really moving in the right direction. And I think it'll help fund other areas of compensation for staff throughout the district in the coming years. This is a required slide from the state to provide the board with kind of what that looks like formally on a statement. So that's what this looks like from Mid-America, which is the administrator of the OPEB plan. And one thing I want to mention here too, I kind of hit on this here. So Millman just finished their biannual study. And I think that was shared in the board update to everyone. But the one thing I want to mention here is when the actuarial firm Millman looked at all of our liabilities, different than expenses. Expenses are what you pay every year. Liabilities are what do you owe at some point. So that's going to go up every year with inflation. What they found was that in June 30th of 2025, this past June, our OPEB liability was 27 million. And they're projecting at June 30th, 2026, it to go to 24 million. So $3 million decrease with increases in expenses and health insurance shows that this is working. It just takes time. So I think in 18-19, that liability was at 50 million. So significant decrease. I think making small changes can have a long impact. So, all right, Fund 80, Community Service Fund. Finishing up here, I think. So, excuse me. Our revenues this year, the Fund 80 levy, 3.825 million, along with local source fees, puts the revenues at 5.4 roughly million, with our expenses at up just under 9.2, with a third of that coming from construction capital, which is going to be phase 2 of the gym, which will be done, I believe, mid-year. Looking at the fund balance, kind of a similar flow here with the other funds. The beginning fund balance in Fund 80 was about 5.7, with the revenues minus expenses leaves the Fund 80 balance at just under $2 million, which is a pretty healthy fund given the annual levy. So, okay, shifting to the property tax levy for this year. Kind of the breakdown as showed before. The total proposed property tax levy, obviously pending finalized revenue and aid and equalized value, is 56.27 million. Of that, about 82% of that goes to the general fund. Obviously, there's a portion that goes to debt service and community service as previously presented. The tax levy increase for the year is about 18% from 47.3 to 56.2. Of that, I want to talk about private vouchers here, because that makes, and we'll get into specifics of where did the increase come from specifically with the mill rate adjustment for each one. But I want to show this because this is a really important thing for the community here. Of the 56 million, just under 9.5 of it are private vouchers. These are what are called pass-through dollars in school finance. So what that means is we receive, really, we aren't even receiving it. It's withheld from us, from the state, and then awarded to the schools where these students attend. So this is an expense to our community, and it makes up about 18.17% of the non-referendum levy. And the reason it's non-referendum is the way you can compare apples to apples. So every year comparing it, that makes up 18% of our tax levy. So it's important to note. The other thing I want to note is that we receive $11,000, roughly $800 per kid. You'll notice on that slide that for high school students, we're actually taking a loss on revenue. So we're expected to pay $13,000 per student and only receiving $11,800. So for every student that enrolls in a private voucher school that is in high school, we actually see a negative expense there. The last thing I want to note is that this is the last year of an enrollment cap. So next year at this time, that enrollment cap is unlimited, right? And so at this time, the current state law is students who participate in private vouchers have to be under an income limit to receive a voucher. Well, we're one of a few number of districts who are maxed out with that limit. So we hit the 10%. So what that looks like next year is really unknown. I've asked for guidance from the state and from Baird, and there isn't any. So it's something worth watching as we get into the middle of the year next year. So, okay, this is the mill rate at 805, like we showed before. And to finish up here, to kind of show where the increases are from a mill rate and levy perspective. The $47 million was last year's tax levy, and the mill rate was 661. You can see a breakdown of kind of what moved the needle each place, right? So the 325 expense is about 2.4 million. That's 35 cents. The private voucher increase from last year, this year is about 17 cents. The transfer of service amount is 16 cents. The 5.8 million operating and the $70 million capital bond, if you look at the numbers, you go, well, why isn't that higher? It's because the 80 levy was reduced. So you actually have to take 2 million off of each of those to get it down to 54 cents and 32 cents because that was part of the promise. And then the state aid projected increase lowers the mill rate by 10 cents. That gets you from 661 to 805 and the levy from 47.3 to 56.2. And I want to show this because this is important as well, is what did we tell the community versus what is. It's important that they know that what we shared with them during the referendum campaign is what we said was going to be. So the $5.8 million operating referendum came in at 54 cents, which is under what we said. We said it'd be 56 cents. And the $70 million capital bond, we have at 32 cents, which we communicate at 44. Now that will go up, likely closer to 44 cents in future years when the payment increases. But again, a lot of that, about $900,000 of that is going to be shifting from energy efficiency to here. So the community's already paying part of that, right? So I feel good that we met the obligation we set out to the community. So that's good news. So areas of continued budget consideration from now until we meet in end of October. The big one's going to be the third Friday count and getting the numbers from both our schools, but also from students who are open enrolling across our district in and out, because that's a number that counts for membership for us. Certification of equalization aid in the final revenue limit authority, getting updated private school voucher numbers, which will result in an updated property tax levy. Finishing up budgets, we have a open enrollment starting for employees, where employees can elect benefits. That's a big deal. If more employees elect single coverage or no coverage, that impacts our budget, has huge impacts. So that's important to know. And then just continuing to plan for the future. Energy efficiency, this is a required report just to show. It shows the utility savings, which is $185,000 a year, comes off of the resolution expense. So we actually receive a 1.5 million, which is less the debt. So if you see the 1.7 here, that's actually what we pay. We receive 1.5 because they don't let you double dip the expense savings. So, and I think that is all I have. I'm gonna check my time here. It's pretty close to 30 minutes. So.
Thank you. All right. And so then we have board member questions, anything that you'd like to know about? Any? Okay. Yeah.
So thank you for breaking down the expenses for the vouchers, and we talked about kind of a lot of different things. So we have increase in voucher costs from last year of 17 cents, makes up 17 cents of that mill rate.
Yep.
And we have an 18% total revenue amount subtracted from removing the referendum dollars.
Yep.
So with the referendum dollars, I'm just trying to look at it from the perspective of an average community member. Do we know what percent of their tax bill, property tax bill from the school district, is due to vouchers?
Yeah. So if the tax levy is projected at 56 million is what it ends up being, it's going to be the 9.4 over that. So roughly, 18, 19% is what we're projecting at this point. Yeah.
So similar to what it is without the referendum.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a confusing statistic, but I was trying to compare apples to apples. I didn't want someone to say, well, you're comparing two different things. Right. So it'll roughly be the same. It's just that if I change that number, it'll change the rest of those.
Sure.
Because I have to add that on for every single one. Yeah. Yeah.
And then just to clarify another part of it. So when a student attends our district, the cost for that student to attend our district is split between state aid and property taxes.
Yep.
But when a student attends a voucher school, is it true that 100% of that cost comes from property taxes?
In the first year, yes.
Okay.
The first year, so whatever increase we show here, which I believe is just under 1.2 million, 100% of that 1.182 million will come from property taxpayers. Now, after that, subsequently, there is an aid component to that, but yeah.
Is it the same amount that we get at the split?
It is, yes, but it's more complicated because it depends on when the kid enrolled. There's factors to that, but there is some state aid we receive for that. And I don't believe it's up to the 60%, but depending on the year, it's 40 to 50%. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions about the presentation? No. All right. Well, then that will take us to 6.3. So public comments on the budget. So at this time, if anyone would like to address the board regarding the budget, you may sign up at the back of the room or in the Zoom link that is in the chat. You have 3 minutes to provide comments on the budget. The board cannot discuss, debate, or act upon any of the items addressed during the public comments portion of this school board or budget hearing. But follow-up may be provided if it can be answered quickly, otherwise by the time that we get to updating or voting on at the end of October, the budget itself. So at this time, we'll see if anybody is signed up, which I do not have anyone signed up currently. So I'll wait for a moment. 3. All right. Seeing nobody, I will close public comments for this portion of the meeting and move back to Mr. Norris for his concluding remarks.
At this point, I don't have any. I just appreciate you guys, the support for the budget process. It's a full year effort and a lot changes. So I know every time I come back, you're like, what's going on now? But I assure you it's done with all the accuracy and work that goes into it. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. That will conclude our public budget hearing portion of the meeting, and that will move us to item 7 in our agenda, which would be the superintendent's report.
So good evening. I have an abbreviated report since we have a pretty busy night tonight. Every time I say that, it never comes out abbreviated, so I realize that at the time. I'll try to make it quick tonight. Just a couple of things, legislative updates. Senate Bill 389, rescinding the governor's 400-year veto. We are aware of the situation with courts and how that's been challenged over the last couple of years. There's legislation to rescind that. There's also legislation around immunization waivers. School bus drivers over 70 with medical conditions. Also equipment of school buses with audio-visual recording devices, as well as legislation around driver education, instruction related to school bus safety. So those are pending bills that have already been filed for the upcoming session. Our back to school bash. I want to thank everyone in the community as well as our board members who attended. We broke records this year. Great turnout, great enthusiasm. We had representation from both high schools and every single one of our elementary and middle schools as well. Throughout the night, it was a lot of positive feedback. So I want to thank everybody for just coming out. We had DJs from the radio station. Give me the radio station. I'm bad with that. KISS FM. I appreciate them keeping their word. They promised me back in May when they were at Wilson that they would come to the back to school bash. And so I really appreciate them being people of their word. And we have a true partnership. My daughter and wife were riding to school the next morning, and they said all they talked about was the back to school bash on their show. So, hey, free publicity. We'll take it. We'll take it, especially when it's positive, right? First day of school greeters. I want to thank the following groups from our community: the West Allis Rotary, Knights of Columbus, our board member, Ms. Jane Carr, Ridge Church, Marquette Women's Basketball Team, United Healthcare PTA members, the 414 Church, Luther Memorial, UWM School of Education, Wisconsin Athletic Club, WAWM Rec Department, Fruity Fusions, Growth Architecture, CG Schmidt, and WAC Construction Crew. All of those organizations or companies volunteered at various schools on the first day to welcome our students back. And so this is something that we definitely want to build on. I did not mention the Hale staff as well as the other staffs. I'm sure they were outside of the building. I happened to run through the Hale staff line, greeting line. So I just wanted to send them a special shout out for their enthusiasm on the first day as well. Our student advisory committee group this year. So we have 3 students from Dockey, Nathan Hale, as well as West Allis Central. From Dockey PBL, we have Victoria Sunquist, Joseph Dombrowski, and Toby Weimer. From Nathan Hale, Elena May, Brandon Landis, and Gerda. I know I was going to mess this up. Anybody want to help me with this one? David, yeah. There you go. You got it. I'll practice that. I promise I'm not going to mess it up next time. Quentin Crumble, Zahara Price, and Toby Jesse from West Allis Central. And we'll be starting that in October. That's the first time they'll participate. So a couple of events. Our district-wide opening day event at Nathan Hale, Back to School Bash, EMLSS meeting with ASA, met with Dr. Anthony Cruz, president of MATC, on last Wednesday. So thank you, Sarah, for setting that up with us, as well as one-on-one meetings with cabinet members. Nathan Hale JV varsity boys and girls cross-country meet at Greenfield Park on Friday, as well as a Nathan Hale football game versus Riverside and Germantown the last couple of weeks. So that concludes the superintendent's report for tonight.
All right, thank you. That'll take us to our general public comments section for item 8. So at this time, if anyone would like to address the board, you may sign up at the back of the room or in the Zoom link in the chat. You have 3 minutes to provide comments. The board cannot discuss, debate, or act upon any item addressed during the public comments portion of the school board meeting. Follow-up may be provided by the superintendent at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. We'll see if anyone is signed up yet. Check Zoom. Seeing nobody, we'll just give it a couple seconds in case someone is rushing to sign up. All right, seeing nobody at this time, I will close public comments for tonight, and we will move on to item 9 on our agenda, which would be our board reports, starting with the review of our board calendar. And pull that up here. If I have it, there it is. All right, so tonight, September 8th, 2025, we have a regular board meeting, which includes a workshop on our strategic plan, focused on our Destination West mantra, I guess. Yeah. And then what we'll do is we will move over to September 15th. We'll have another board workshop meeting on athletics, which will be a review of our year-end survey data and high school athletic culture and goals. And then we will have on September 22nd, another regularly scheduled board meeting that will have the 2024 referendum updates, workshop number 3. And this will be used to share any of the updates that we have accomplished so far with projects and the progress on the use of our referendum money. So with that, then that'll take us to 9.2, which would be our committee reports. And I believe that tonight we just have the college and career readiness. Board Member Becker.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. The College and Career Readiness Committee met tonight before the board met. We spent some time learning about the Carnegie adoption. That's the curriculum for our mathematics. We are currently on year 3. That's the implementation phase. We're pretty deep into that phase 3. So looking into year 4 activities, which would be continuous monitoring, continuous improvement. So there are 4 keys. We're looking at focusing on professional development and teacher coaching, looking at supporting that implementation, engaging the staff in regular review, and gathering feedback. An interesting point I thought with the review was the use of Mathia as opposed to Alex, which is a supplemental resource that I'm sure we've all heard of with kids being in the district. The good thing to hear there is that Mathia aligns a little more closely with our instruction than Alex did, and it provides grade level learning. So if a student is not achieving at grade level, they're getting a little bit higher level instruction with the supplementals. We also spoke a little bit about some of the collaborative learning efforts across schools. There was time spent on differentiating between the building-wide things like SAIL, where it's more the leadership type learning. What we were looking at more today was professional learning communities where you have teams. Sometimes it's grade level for younger elementary grades, and sometimes it's content area, and that's more towards the secondary and middle levels. The focus there is making sure that the meetings that are set up, like at the beginning and at the end of units, are really well directed, really structured, making sure that they're efficiently run, and really focusing on just establishing a culture of excellence. It was a really good discussion. We got well into the weeds, so I'm trying to avoid going too far. After that, we did spend time on a bus safety question I'd asked a little while ago. I think I'd mentioned before there was a safety concern in another district out to the west. And I was asking, what does our audit program look like? What kind of protocols do we have in place to protect the kids? So Connie Bergman was kind enough to reach out to the vendor. We learned about some of the background checks that First Student runs. First Student has an entire safety department as well. They've got policies in place, like a 1-strike policy for some violations. They have drivers must report their traffic violations. They have 2 or 3 cameras in each of the buses with random audits of the footage. The camera performance is also monitored, so if a camera breaks down, it gets replaced and dealt with right away. There's an iDrive app that monitors driving habits in addition to the GPS, making sure there are no unscheduled stops. And what I think we would expect is a child safety check after the students are off the bus. So all in all, I think the committee was pretty pleased with the robust reporting on that. So again, thank you, Connie Bergman, for reaching out on that. The items for future discussion, we spoke a little bit about some of the transitions from elementary to middle and middle to high school, and just making sure we're supplementing and identifying gifted and talented students. We'll be reporting back on that one after the next meeting.
All right.
Let me
Thank you.
just follow up real quick.
Yeah.
Just want to follow up on the bus tracking. We're encouraging all of our parents to please use the app to track buses. We understand that usually it's been a habit over the years, just call the district and find out where the bus is. But in real time, they can actually track the location of their kid's bus by use of that app. It's pretty much up to date, so they can see where the bus actually is. Instead of trying to really worrying like the bus is late, they can actually see it on the app. So what's the app you want to? First Student, yeah, First Student. So it's the First Student app, and it's pretty a unique feature for the years.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that. I used it last year for my kids that ride the bus as well. So it does work pretty well.
First View. The company is called First Student. I knew I wasn't wrong. That's why I asked the question.
All right. So with that, do we have any questions for the committee? Yes, Mr. Lee.
Mr. Becker, with the change over to Mafia, are we no longer using Alex anywhere in district?
That I don't know. I can ask though. We'll let you know.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Did you? No. Okay. Are there, you look like there was another
Alyssa,
comment.
you want to go ahead and respond to that? I don't think that's anything. I don't think that's anything that we need to wait on.
We still have that contract for 2 more years, so we are using it as a supplemental resource. It will be able to be used for more targeted lagging skills of students, and Mathia will be more focused at the universal level. So if a student at grade level is struggling with a specific skill, it aligns really closely to the lesson they're receiving with their teacher. So we will be able to use both.
Okay, thank you. Is it helpful? Is either one helpful for helping students work ahead? So those that aren't lagging, but maybe are ahead of where their classroom is.
Both can be used for that purpose too.
Okay.
Yep. And teachers have the ability to add extension or accelerate.
Very good. Thank you.
You're off the hook. Well,
All right. Are there any other questions for this committee? Seeing none, that'll then take us to 9.3, our board member reports of community events. Is there any community events that members would like to report on tonight? Ooh, pretty quiet tonight. Okay, Mr. Becker?
a lot of volleyball with the Hale kids, a lot of volleyball. One of the nice things to note there, I did my duty as a parent in the concessions during the JV 14, what do they call it, quad. And I have to say that the kids who came there's a half dozen kids who came up to the window from Rufus King, and every single one of them was more polite than the next. And it was really just wonderful to have some guests come in, and it was really noticeable. So that was nice. Beyond that, the teacher first day, always fun. The new teacher first day, always fun. Really great to see the energy. Good things.
All right, thank you. Any other reports? No, not at this time. All right. Well, I think then what we can do is we can move on to our other updates, which currently I have none. So then that would take us to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda includes 10.1, the approval of minutes, and 10.2, the employment summary. Does anyone need anything separated out? No? All right. At this time, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve 10.1 and 10.2.
Second.
All right. We have a motion to approve 10.1 and 10.2 for the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? All right, then we'll move to a vote. And so all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that passes. That is the end of our action item pieces, and that will take us to item 11, which is our workshop for the strategic plan. Do we need any time to set up or
Yep.
anything?
And everybody's that's gonna sit up here, is gonna sit up here. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And Robert, Alyssa, yes.
Well, then if we're going to take a moment to set up, we will need to adjourn for a moment. So if there is no objection to, or not adjourn, we will need to take a recess for 5 minutes. Unless anyone has any objection, we will recess for 5 minutes. Seeing none, we are recessed. We have our strategic plan presentation, and so I will turn it over to Dr. Robinson and his team for their presentation.
All right. So good evening. This is a day that we've been planning for a long time, and really will be glad when it's over with. A lot of time has gone into getting here. So I'm looking forward to the feedback from the board, as well as some of the comments that will allow us to get to a finished product of sorts. And so can't wait for that to happen. So just to kind of give some context, strategic plan is a long-term roadmap that outlines an organization's vision, mission, and values, along with the strategies, actions, and resources needed to achieve specific, measurable goals. And so this is the purpose of the strategic plan. I wanted to first thank the board for entrusting me with this unique opportunity to design a plan of this magnitude. And thanks for their support, for leaning in at times in committee work and helping with the KPIs. And we'll kind of talk about that, what will happen moving forward if we're successful tonight and receive approval. I want to also thank our principals for their feedback. Many of them are here tonight. I did not force them to come. I just asked them to come. And so I appreciate them being here. Tonight, I realize that Monday is a tough night to be here. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and supporting this effort. So a couple of things. So I wanted to provide sort of the goals of tonight. So it's to introduce the district's new strategic plan designed to guide our work over the coming years. We're going to provide an overview of the process used to create the plan. We're going to have an emphasis on the plan's role as a roadmap for continuous improvement aligned with the district's mission and vision. We'll also have highlights of the year-by-year focus areas showing how each year builds on the last to achieve long-term goals. And then we'll discuss next steps and look ahead to work needed for subsequent years. So how did we get to this particular point? You may ask. I'm glad you asked. There's been a lot of data collection, a lot of conversations, a lot of small group discussion, a lot of feedback from various individuals. And we started this process in February of 2025 through stakeholder engagement survey that was sent out. And I believe we had 1,200 responses in that particular survey. That survey was done by School Perceptions. We also had a data collection analysis period performed by School Perceptions that concluded in April of 2025. Vision and priority setting steering committee that started work around April 2025. Focus groups for the month of April and May, which consisted of students, teachers, administration, and parents. We worked on developing board goals in the months of May and June, and then board committees developing KPIs, which will guide their supports throughout this period moving forward. So just to kind of provide sort of who's on the steering committee. So we had union representation. We had city representation from the village of West Milwaukee, as well as the city of West Allis. We had building principals. Mr. Summerfield and Mr. Harris in particular were representatives from the administration side. We had teacher leadership, special ed and CTE, as well as regular education. We had parents, students, as well as other community members. We met 3 times over 90 minutes each. We went through a plus delta assessment of the current strategic plan. We provided an overview of the strategic planning process for them. We had a role identification and timeline for their work, and then we reviewed the goals and performance indicators for practical implementation, following the collection of data, and then the creation of the plan. Next slide. So I am going to pause and allow Dr. Gottlieb from School Perceptions, who's going to lead us through the work, and he's going to talk about all the robust data that we collected over the past 4 or 5 months. Say it that way. Dr. Gottlieb.
Thank you very much. It's great to meet everybody. I'm Derek Gottlieb from School Perceptions. The way that these presentations tend to go is give some background information on us, talk a little bit about how data collection took place, go through some results and analysis, and then field questions from you. So we're a company that has been around since 2002. We've conducted millions of staff, parent, and student surveys, as well as community surveys to help districts improve. We've done this for over 1,000 school districts, nearly everybody in Wisconsin, as well as nationwide as well. You just saw this basically in Dr. Robinson's presentation, so I'm going to skip this. These are like, here's when we did the community planning survey, we did the whatever, you saw this. This is the community planning survey information. There was a March 21st deadline, over 1,200 total respondents, plus or minus 2.88% margin of error on any given item. You're going to see slides that look a lot like the following shortly. Most of our items are on a 1 to 5 agreement scale. We don't use a 3-point neutral. We sort of force people to either agree to some extent or disagree. There's a don't know, doesn't apply option, and those are just not factored into the overall score weighting. So in terms of community indexes, our individual items feed up into these indexes: communications, climate, leadership, and academics. West Allis's current scores, that is the average on a 0 to 5 scale, are, as you can see, 3.62, 3.63, in the mid threes, and you can see the comparison scores. Comparisons, a comparison set of districts is compiled or comprised of every district that has taken a community survey using these items over the last 2 years. It is over 1,000 districts that matches West Allis, West Milwaukee's demographic breakdown by NCES standards. So enrollment size and percentage of students receiving or eligible for free and reduced lunch, largely. Those are the criteria. So this is just to say this is an apples to apples comparison is what you're looking at when you're saying a comparison average. Strategic planning item analysis. These are all respondents. Again, 0 to 5 scale or a 1 to 5 scale on agreement. Success in life through college and career. Each item starts like the West Allis, West Milwaukee School District. Prepare students for education after high school, 71% agreement. Overall score 3.49, the comparison score 3.79. I don't need to read each one of these. I will say that whenever you see an NA, it's because something like delivers a high quality education is a customized question for this district and isn't generally asked in these surveys. For employee engagement and culture, West Allis, West Milwaukee School District employs high quality teachers and staff. 80% agree, 3.74 average score, 3.96 comparison, maintains safe and secure schools, and so on. A reminder as I go through these that this is an aggregate of all respondents, which includes staff, it includes parents, and it includes non-parent, non-staff community members as well, though the bulk of the respondent pool is parents and staff, as is typical in community surveys. Communication and community relations. West Allis, West Milwaukee School District provides me with opportunities to offer feedback. 81% agree, 3.75, comparison 3.69, and so on. Financial stability and efficiency clearly communicates the West Allis, West Milwaukee School District, clearly communicates facility needs and challenges. 73% agree, score 3.57. These are not like, this is a pillar of West Allis, West Milwaukee, what the district is trying to do. And these are all customized questions. I will say that these agreement percentages on similar items are above the comparison average in general. This is in West Allis, West Milwaukee is doing better in general on these items than in others or than other districts. No one statewide, certainly nationally as well, is happy with school districts and managing funds appropriately, it seems. Now we've broken these out by respondent kind. So this can get overwhelming in terms of the amount of text here. We asked presented respondents with a long list of possible strategic planning items that they'd like to see the district focus on. And we asked them to choose 4 or up to 4. And here broken out are the top 5 for staff, for parents, for non-parents, non-staff. And what we have done is highlight in blue any place where those 3 or any item that is in the top 5 of all 3 groups. And for the top 5 strategic planning items, it's just, we would like to see West Allis, West Milwaukee employ high quality teachers and staff. That's the area of agreement. You see a lot that are shared by 2 of the 3 stakeholder groups. For some reason, I can't seem to find one right now. There might be on a different slide. Overall, how would you rate communications from the district? 18% great, 39% good, 24% fair, 10% poor. Overall score 2.71. This is a 1 to 4 scale, so not apples to apples. What topics are you interested in learning more about? How our district is performing compared to other districts. That's why the comparison numbers are in this report. Student achievement and success, school safety and security, facility improvement plans, district goals and plans, school finance and budgets, and everything else is below 50%. The reason that these are, again, people can choose as many as they want on this particular list. That's why you see these weird percentages. Top 5 communication topics items by subgroups. What do you want to hear about? And here we have quite a bit more overlap. School safety and security, how our district is performing compared to other districts, and student achievement and successes. Every one of the subgroups that we surveyed wanted to hear about those. Planning priorities. Again, please choose up to 4 areas. Where do you believe we should focus our improvement efforts? Career and technical education courses, life skills, recruit and retain high quality staff, and mental health services for students are the top 4. We'll get to the rest of the list in a second, but I will just pause and say that those, no matter what district I'm speaking to or what district we have surveyed, whether it is a suburban district, an urban district, a very rural district, those 4 in some order are always at the top. That is consistent. I guess I didn't go through the rest of them. I will say for the record that like people being like, we should teach our kids how to use AI better is always at the very bottom of every list when we do these surveys. Top 5 planning priorities by subgroup. Here it is again, recruit and retain high quality staff, life skills, career and technical education at the top of everyone's list. When I see non-parents, non-staff, this is just a comment, say like reading and literacy achievement should be a priority. My sense is that reflects some unfamiliarity with how much reading and literacy achievement is already being stressed in the district in a way that staff and parents are more aware of. And so they will substitute something else in there. So graduate success. We understand WAWM students need to be proficient in reading, writing, math, science, and social studies. Beyond these foundations, please select up to 4 skills you believe students need to be ready for life after high school. This is in the survey still. We use the focus groups to really dig in on some of this. Communication, conflict resolution, self-control and regulation, time management and prioritization. And then below that, growth mindset, perseverance, empathy and perspective taking, integrity, collaboration, and so on. Top 5 graduate success items by subgroup. Here, the 2 big agreements across all these are conflict resolution and communication, which stands to reason. Overall satisfaction with the district. We ask a net promoter item on this, which is essentially how likely would you be to recommend the district to a friend or family member? This is on a 0 to 10 scale, obviously. We do offer a neutral because that's how net promoter scores tend to work. What you want to pay attention to is the number of 8s through 10s. Those are your proactive proponents who are going to, like the kind of people who are going to bring up how great their experience in the district is unprompted with friends and families. And you also want to pay attention to the zeros, ones, and twos who are really unhappy with the ways that things are going in the district and are likely to play the opposite role. Current score is 5.74. The last time we did a similar survey for West Allis, West Milwaukee, it was 5.65. This is better. So now we also, like, each one of these included like a staff survey page that would go specifically to staff to ask more in depth about their work environment. And it also included like a parent breakout as well. So parents could reflect on their kids' school experience. Same 1 to 5 scale. Indices for staff, academics, engagement, support, student experience, staff experience. You can see the current scores and the comparison scores there, everything right in the middle of the pack. The top, rather than going through the entire survey, the top 5 staff scores, that is the top 5 averages. I have healthy working relationships with my coworkers. Our staff does a good job of educating our students. Our school supports students from diverse backgrounds. All students in our schools are respected for their values and beliefs, and I have access to the technology support I need. Those are big and in general better than the comparisons. Bottom 5 staff scores. The amount of work I'm asked to do is reasonable or manageable. The social and emotional needs of all students are being met. Our staff handles student discipline in a consistent manner. The district's pay practices are fair. Our school's student discipline practices and policies are effective. I'm going to say a little bit more about this in a second, but in every district, the 2 questions about discipline are always in the bottom 5 of staff scores. The thing to be aware of is that it's also not great in terms of the comparison there. So like, it is true that like for everyone, discipline is a concern, but it's also, and well, here we go, top 5 staff comparisons. Our school supports students from diverse backgrounds. The district is heading in the right direction. Our school has a process to ensure every student has a connection with at least one adult in the school. All students in our school are respected for their values and beliefs. The school board is doing what it takes to make our district successful. Those are big and important items to be doing well on by comparison. Bottom 5 staff comparisons, pay practices, I feel safe at work. More on that in a second. Our school's student discipline practices and policies are effective. I have the materials and supplies I need to do my job well, and the amount of work that I'm asked to do is reasonable and manageable. What we have found, this is a little sidebar, what we have found looking at, over the summer, we analyzed all of the staff survey data that we have done over the last year, just hundreds of thousands of individual responses to items like this. And we just did a big lasso regression analysis to be like, what items on our survey are the biggest predictors of that net promoter score? For staff net promoter score, like it asks, the question is something to the effect of, I am willing to recommend this district to a colleague to move here. That's a big predictor of staff attrition. The number one thing that affects that score is I feel safe at work, it turns out. Our boss didn't believe us when we presented this report to him. He's like, no, I just hear about discipline all the time. I'm like, right, but everybody feels negatively about discipline. Like, we know that. It doesn't start to be a problem for staff retention until it starts to affect feelings of safety, is what we have found. So FYI. Parent index analysis. Same. Informed included educational excellence, atmosphere, and experience. These are all more or less right in line with comparison scores. Top 5 parent scores. I feel welcome in my child's schools. School staff treat my child with dignity and respect. I have at least one school staff member I feel comfortable contacting when I have an idea or concern. I know how to support my child's learning, and my child feels safe at school. Those are the ones that you want. Bottom 5 parent scores. There's a healthy culture at our school. My child gets help when they need it. The school has high expectations for my child. I'm satisfied with how much my child is learning, and I'm satisfied with our school's effort to address bullying. It is odd to see, but this is the second time I've seen this in recent surveys, to see my child feels safe at school, high, and also I'm satisfied with our school's efforts to address bullying in the bottom 5. That's interesting to me from an academic standpoint. Top 5 parent comparisons. School communication is both timely and transparent. there's a healthy culture at our school. I have opportunities to provide feedback. The school provides opportunities for parental involvement, and I feel welcome in my child's school. That's great. Bottom 5, my child feels safe at school. My child gets help when they need it. The school has high expectations for my child. I'm satisfied with how much my child is learning, and school facilities are clean and well kept. For some of these, I want to point out, like, my child feels safe at school. If 86% are agreeing, it is, it is significant that, like, that's below the 4.11 comparison score, but it's a 3.98 with 86, whatever. I'm trying to be like, it's also important to, like, keep that in perspective, that it's not like it's 40% of people being like, my child feels safe at school. So after this, I conducted focus group interviews designed to try to inform a portrait of a graduate that the district was interested in creating and adding some depth to the survey data. So as you heard, I sat down with teachers, students, parents, and administrators in these separate groups to sort of dig into transcribed the conversations, and qualitatively coded those to identify convergent and divergent themes. And it turns out that no matter which group I was talking to, I was asking, like, what should a West Allis, West Milwaukee graduate have ideally? What kind of skills, dispositions, what should they leave here with? And then I asked some questions about, like, what do you feel like is getting in the way of the district achieving that stuff right now? And that's what provided the really interesting data, I think. Anyway, here's what we found. Like, everyone converged on these things. Foundational academic competency is what graduates should leave with. Life-ready skills and dispositions, communication capacities, collaboration skills and empathy, and self-direction. You saw those reflected on the survey a little bit. This is where they all sort of came together. Current district performance, when I asked people how the district is doing and what's getting in the way, this is where people sort of opened up about frustrations that they had. People said that, like, people would spend time talking about what wasn't working, where it wasn't happening, and then everybody would pause for a second and be like, here are the places where this is really successful. It might sound like we're being negative, but, like, we really believe in the district. We can point to these examples of success. The issue is that they're happening in pockets and that it is not happening everywhere. That's the issue. People pointed out, all groups pointed out, wide variation between classrooms and buildings. Students talked about how they could have excellent experiences in one classroom and a totally different kind of experience in another. Teachers and parents talked about how there seemed to be quite a lot of variation in terms of their kids' experiences or their own experiences in one building versus another when they moved at one level versus another. And a lot of people across groups, again, used the word pendulum to refer to the district's sort of recent efforts to focus some energy on social and emotional learning, problem-based learning, and then to take a more rigorous focus on academics. People who were just responding to a little bit of unclarity in terms of what the district was supposed to be valuing and how that was supposed to be delivered. In terms of making improvements to these things, this is compiled from what all of these groups said that they would like to see. A strategic plan was at the top of everybody's list, not necessarily in those words, but a plan, a roadmap was the word that they used. So check. Family and student communication. Parents wanted some clarity and consistency in terms of knowing what performance and behavioral expectations, what those were from classroom to classroom and building to building. They wanted more ready access to regular progress reporting. And they especially, I'm speaking specifically for parents here, wanted a better sense of the way that curriculum and programs are mapped out. A lot of parents voice some frustration with not understanding that, like, you have to take this class in order to get into this elective, but maybe these two electives conflict with each other, or maybe this program is offered at this building, but not at that building. They felt like they or their kids didn't know until it was too late. There was a lot of talk around vertical and horizontal alignment, making sure that transition points between elementary, middle, and high school were smoother, providing a little bit more time for administrators in those buildings to get together and understand what was happening in each building so that they could help smooth those transitions. Getting better horizontal alignment across, say, what's happening in sixth grade math across the district, providing more time for those teachers to get together and share what is working in particular buildings at particular times, and additional support for teachers and staff, which means for the folks that we talk to, consistent strategies for managing student behavior, allocating time for authentic collaboration is what teachers talked about a lot, not necessarily the kinds of professional learning communities that have become relatively common in districts everywhere, but time to get together and talk in more genuine, less scripted kinds of ways, and sharing internally in the district and within buildings what is working with the actual students that people share in common to help spread really effective practices. That is what we did in the service of the strategic plan. Questions that I can help you answer? I realize we didn't.
Are there any questions from the board about this section? Okay, none at this time. Okay.
So that was a lot. And now we want to kind of I want to provide a translation on all of that stuff that he just said and make it what I would say practical. So how do we take this information and the feedback that he's collected over the past 4 or 5 months and put it into practical use, and where our community can understand, our students will understand, parents, board, everybody's on the same page. And that was the work of this team over the past couple of months once we received the information from the focus groups as well as the survey. So we created what we consider to be a portrait of a graduate. In other words, we want every single one of our parents, when they're sending their kids to school, from a 4K all the way to 12th grade, to understand what we're putting into their child and what are they going to get out of an education here in our district. And that's what we're going to kind of go through over the next couple of minutes. And so my first job was to kind of translate some of those findings. And so we narrowed it into what we consider 5 traits of a portrait of a graduate. We want our graduates to have core strength and unlimited potential. We want our graduates to have the traits of working together and at the same time thriving together. We want our students to have a voice and to use their voice as power. We want our students to be exposed and have bridges and not barriers. So if there's a barrier that exists in our district, we owe it to every single kid to remove that. And at the same time, we want them to own it. If we believe they're own it, take accountability for it, they will achieve it. So those are what we, in translation of what he said or the findings, that's what we came out as our traits for our portrait of a graduate. Now, this will serve as a shared vision for student success that reflects community values and aspirations. It's going to help our students be prepared for college, career, and life readiness in a rapidly changing world. What worked 30 years ago, 30 years ago when I graduated from high school, does not work anymore. And we have to understand that. But how do we create systems that allow for our kids to thrive? And that's the challenge that we have as a district. And lastly, we want this to allow us to act as a tool for communication with family, staff, and community about what it means to be a successful graduate from WAWM. So what we've kind of created, I can't take credit for the graphic. Carolyn and her team have really done a great job in trying to provide a visual. This is a roadmap that we've created that goes step by step from 4K all the way through 12th grade, through the assistance of our cabinet as well as our principals in trying to mold this into what we would say as a Picasso. The purpose of this roadmap is to outline the key skills and learning milestones students should achieve by the end of each grade level. Provides families with a clear, accessible guide to their child's learning journey. We also want to ensure consistency and alignment across schools so that all students have common expectations. We heard that in the results. Depending on the school, depending on the class, sometimes it's different. We want to make sure that we get that more aligned. We also want to help parents and caregivers understand how they can support learning at home. Parents have to be partners. We have to give them the tools in order to be partners and help them understand what it is that we're trying to do so they can help us at home achieve that. And then serve as a roadmap for growth, showing each grade level builds towards a long-term readiness for college and career. So this is an example of some things that we identify for 4K and K parents. Their kids should develop and enhance listening, speaking, writing, and reading skills, participate in structured learning routines and classroom expectations, recognize and name emotions, build early empathy, and learning foundational self-regulation strategies. You're going to see throughout a lot of the SEL language. We wanted to define what that looks like at each level, though, because I think we get caught up so many times in using acronyms, but we really don't know what that means. I ask that all the time. So what does that mean? When we say SEL, what does that mean? It looks different at each grade level and each grade level band. So we want to define what that means. Growth supported through activity-based learning, develop independence, responsibility, and problem solving, and academic benchmarks and assessments are used to target support. Yes, we do assess for students in kindergarten when you talk about reading levels and are we on target? Yes, assessments are a part of that. Next slide. Our first through third, I'm not trying to read every bullet point, but just to give you an idea, strengthen core academic skills of reading, writing, and math, learning phonics and vocabulary to extracting meaning and information from complex text. So seeing how it builds on things, that's the purpose of how we're going as we expand through our grade bands. Expand critical thinking and problem solving skills through the use of depth and complexity. That's the gifted and talented framework. Builds independence and learning responsibility. Also expands emotional vocabulary, developing problem solving with peers, and building persistence. Apply academic benchmarks and assessments to guide support. Our fourth through fifth graders, some of the same things, but just at a different level. In this one right here, we're looking at more rigorous activities on Bloom's through problem solving, research, critical thinking with the depth and complexity model, as well as deeper perspective taking, manage more complex emotions, and build independence and decision making. That's that SEL language. Provide interventions and enrichment opportunities to ensure mastery in reading, writing, and math for content area learning. Notice interventions is not mentioned without enrichment. How do we advance and how do we provide more rigor and opportunities for our kids to explore? That's in there on purpose. Also, prepare students for increased academic expectations and transitioning to the next educational level. We want our parents to understand what their kids should have by the time they leave the elementary level, because when Mr. Fish and Mr. Thompson receive them at the intermediate level, there's a certain level of expectation that those teachers are expecting from that their kids will have. And that's what we want to make sure that we identify what those are. Focus on college and career readiness and post-secondary career interests. Starts a little bit at fifth grade, but is even more emphasized at the 6th through 8th level. Introduction to high school credits, GPA, and graduation requirements. If we wait till high school, it's too late to start having these conversations. So this is going to be embedded within the 6th through 8th framework to make sure that we're building that skill set in kids so that they have this awareness and they're planning according right now at the middle school level or intermediate level, as we call it. Strengthen critical thinking and writing across subject areas. Matt Lesser will tell you that fourth bullet up there, if we strengthen that, we don't have to worry about ACT scores because that's going to come with it. So just thinking like, how does this impact at a later level? Directly impacts it through the critical thinking and writing across subject areas. Creating habits of success, attendance, homework, collaboration, and life skills. And then at the same time, strengthening self-identity. There's that SEL stuff again, language again, navigating peer relationships, and practice responsible independence. So here we are to our freshmen and sophomores. I would say these are the most important years of a kid's life. I often tell kids in ninth grade, the decisions you make in the next 4 years will determine the next 40 years of your life. And that's a true statement because, sometimes when we make those bad decisions, it is hard to bounce back. And so we have to make sure at this particular level that they understand what those decisions are and they're exposed to positive reinforcements. Establishing academic identity and long-term goal setting in the academic and career planning process. Applying SEL to academic and social challenges, balancing independence with responsibility and building resilience. Students align their interests to college, career, and post-secondary pathways. Opportunity to advance for advanced courses, dual enrollment, and extracurricular involvement, and as well as continued growth in academic benchmarks with alignment to graduation requirements. A lot of the slides you saw, that last bullet is always around assessments because if we do the other stuff good, guess what's going to happen as a result? The assessment success will happen. So that's intentional on a lot of these slides. And then lastly, academic choices become personalized and impactful for future endeavors. We have to, at the same time, as a district, and I don't think I would have said this 20 years ago, every kid is not going to college. I don't think I would have said that 20 years ago. But I say that comfortably as a superintendent because I understand that as a district, we have to start molding our kids to be successful in whatever their endeavor is in life. And that's okay if they choose not to go to college. But how do we prepare them to come out making more money than me? There are ways to do that. And we have to do that as a district and invest in that. Expand our academic opportunities and academic choice. So AP, dual credit, and technical pathways. Expand exposure to real world experiences, internships, work studies, job shadowing, career exploration. ACT is administered as a part of academic journey connected to college and career goals. This is something I added as I was thinking, ASVAB testing for our kids who are saying, I don't want to go to college. Well, how are we preparing them for military? If military is their choice, they score so high on ASVAB, guess what? They're going to go in racking up money at certain skill, at certain jobs. And that's okay. I'd rather them do that than to be walking around here saying, I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. That's an option. So we have to keep that option open. And then again, final steps are towards graduation, application, senior projects, as well as celebrations. This is not what I would say classify as getting them to the finish line. That's not good enough. So what we're trying to do is create a plan that gets them through the finish line. Then they can start the next leg of the race. And the next leg of the race, as we know, is life. Like we do a pretty good job of getting them there. Some of them is a struggle to get to the finish line. I will acknowledge that. But we have to look past that and let them and help them realize what's out there for them and what the potentials are for success. But that requires a lot of planning. Let me stop here. Questions? I said a lot. Sorry. Questions?
Questions from the board? Yeah. Scott.
So as I listen to you and I think about strategic plans and the profile of a graduate, I understand how powerful that can be. And if you really think about it, we potentially have 14 years with a child to get them ready for life. And I think that statement alone, so beyond a 5-year plan, we have up to 14 years. And how lucky are we to have that opportunity? And so I'm just wondering, as I look at all of these things, when we start in 4K and we have some things that we are using in 4K, getting them ready, then 5K, then first grade, do you feel that this plan spirals back? So all of those skills that they're learning, are they spiraled through again and again? So does the 6th grade or that level know what was done previously? And are we continuing? Because again, we don't want to lose those skills.
That's a great question. So I think, and I say this confidently, that's a discussion that we've had in in receiving and seeking principal feedback, we focused on that. Like as a secondary principal, what are the things that you want to happen prior to you? So that was a serious discussion with our principals as well as our DLCs. And so we just we didn't try to do this in isolation. We tried to do it with the practitioners on the ground to make sure that we had what was needed. So let me also say this to you. Without a doubt, you can look at each one of these bullets and say there's a different language, but they're very much connected.
Okay.
They're very much connected. It just builds on the previous year. It's just a stronger word, and some things have more of an emphasis because it's more grade level appropriate at that time to have you can have a much meaningful discussion with a ninth grader versus a third grader about college. It becomes real. When I told my daughter, you only have 4 years and you got to go, she's looking at me like, no, that's crazy. No, baby, you're a ninth grader. You have 4 years. Like, didn't even realize it. But that's the reality of it. And as a parent, I wanted to cry saying it out loud, but it's just the truth. So what are we doing to get her and her classmates prepared for that? There has to be discussions at the earlier grade level where we introduce them to that concept. But when they get to the 9th and 10th grade, it has to be very much a real conversation about what are your next steps and how are we going to get you there. So it has to be a plan.
So would you say that as I look through for common threads through all of these, are we more generalized in that all of them have some SEL things within them?
Sure.
And
Every level has an SEL component. That's correct.
Okay.
And we were very, very intentional though to define what that is.
Okay.
Because I think SEL gets bottled up, and every time I hear, oh, we're using SEL. Okay, so what does that mean? Tell me what is it that you're doing? Like, what's the action? And that's why we try to be very specific at each level to define what that means. Because SEL to a high school student versus a 4K is totally different. It's a different approach. It's a different strategy. And that was very much intentional in the language that we tried to use for this plan.
Yeah. I think that this is going to be very powerful. And I look at it as a parent, like you start off teaching your kids manners and different levels of manners, and you're constantly reinforcing that until they become an adult and they just automatically, please, thank you, all of those things, right? So we've got to start in 4K, and we've got to build every single year until we leave them at 18 years old with every skill set.
I agree. And
I'm
when you think
excited
about
this.
plans like this, it's unfortunate, especially with graduation. For some, it doesn't become real until they get to 12th grade year in March, when all of a sudden they realize that they're credit deficient. And now what can I do? And, this is a conversation that as a team, we've started to have after that first semester of 9th grade year, because we're starting to track, okay, this amount of kids are not on task and on track to graduate. What do we do? How do we get in there and work with those kids? But it's all about like the support that those kids are getting, but it's through identification and through those supports that we're building.
Is your vision still, I've heard you say over and over, like, I think 5th grade's a good time to start with.
Absolutely, 100%. And the reason that's proven, Robert Joyce is right here. That was one of his questions on his interview. I asked that question. When do we need to start having conversations with kids about college? And he responded 5th and 6th grade. And I said, you're hired. That's a joke. That is a joke. But what he expressed to me during that particular interview was we shared in that understanding that we have to get there early and not wait until kids have these ideas in their minds of what they want to do, but no plan to execute it. Yeah. Every one of our kids, especially our boys, wants to be an NFL player. When I go into elementary school, what do you want to be when I grow up? When you grow up, I want to be in the NFL. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Are you playing for the junior Bulldogs? Are you playing for the junior Huskies? No. I'm gonna wait till I get to high school. Probably not a good idea. Right. But that's an example of how we have to help our kids develop sort of a plan for things like that. And at the same time, so, okay, if you're looking like little Terrence Robinson looked in 5th grade,
football is probably not in your best interest. Okay. I was a little skinny little kid, right? So I knew that I couldn't do that. Like I had to find something different. So what are you good at? What do you excel at? And and helping them realize that if they're excelling at a certain subject, then maybe these are the careers that will be good. Oh, you're great in math. Okay, well, engineering is probably your thing then. Let's look. So this is what we have to do for our kids.
Yep.
That's the conversation.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Okay.
I'm telling Carolyn, feel free to chime in. I'll be hoarse in the morning. All right. So as we progress a little bit, we kind of wanted to spend a couple of minutes on this mission and vision a little bit. And you're not going to probably understand or realize any discrepancies or differences between the previous one. You probably won't. Okay. But what we really wanted to change it up a tad bit for a specific reason. And I'll kind of explain in the bullets right now. So we wanted to place a stronger emphasis on academic excellence and results, ensuring every student is well prepared for the future, okay, regardless of what that future is. To clearly articulate our commitment to college, career, and life readiness as essential outcomes for all learners. I remember talking with Mr. Lee our first time, and he says, I just want to know that all of our kids, when they graduate, are going to be successful in life, whatever that is. And that has been in the back of my mind. And I'm paraphrasing that comment, but that's been in the back of my mind as we were writing this. It's like, how do we create a plan for kids who need the interventions, for the kids who are excelling very well, and we want to create more AP opportunities for those kids. But what about the kids who saying, look, I just really want to go to the military. Fine. How do we create a pathway for those kids? That's been very much intentional. Miss Lee has been on me about this as well. Okay, I took it to heart. No, and I'm saying that jokingly, but you made it personal when you said, "Look, I want something there for my son who doesn't want to go to college," and that's okay. And that's been very much the goal of this plan, is to create what that opportunity looks like for that kid. At the same time, to strengthen our focus on belonging and community, highlighting the importance of educating the whole child. That's that SEL component as well. And then to ensure our mission and vision reflect the district's current priorities and align with the goals of the new strategic plan. You will not see, again, unless you just do a side-by-side comparison, you say, oh, you took this out, you took that out. We try to be as specific as possible to make sure that we understand what the mission is and what the vision is of our district in order for our kids to be successful, not just when they get across that stage in graduation, but when I see them at the Hale football game or the Central football game, what are you doing right now? I attend this. Oh, I've signed up for this. Those are the conversations that I want to hear. I had the thrill, I call it the thrill of this week, when I had to do a letter for one of our students who asked me for a recommendation letter for college. Like, this is what I want to do. She wants to go to college. Absolutely not a problem. I'll write that letter for you. That's what I believe we're here for, is to allow for our kids to excel and to create opportunities for them to do that. So this is the mission and vision statement that we've kind of refined, and they are aligned to each other. Mission is pretty broad. Vision, if you think about glasses, is what's right in front of you. It's what's within view. And so that's what we tried to do with both. All right. Our beliefs. What I did a little shift on this one, and I'll kind of explain the thinking behind this one. I want us to define ourselves, what it is that we believe as a district that we will do and that we promise to do for every single one of our kids. So that was kind of the change that we used with some of the language in this particular one. We decided to be more streamlined, using simpler, more direct language to convey key commitments compared with the longer, more detailed statements in the old version. Okay, I think the old version had 14 beliefs, right? So we tried to condense them a bit, but at the same time be more specific. Okay, we didn't want broad things. We wanted things that we can actually go to and say, are we doing that well? Emphasize academic excellence, college and career readiness, as well as whole child development and making student outcomes more explicit. Equity. is framed not just as a responsibility, but as an active commitment to eliminating barriers, paired with clear emphasis on belonging as central to engagement and success. So let me park right there and say something to you. I think the word equity in our district has been used sort of as a slogan. Okay? And I think it's a slogan that is lacking actions. And so what I wanted us to do was to not get away from that, but we wanted to define that within our beliefs, if we believe in that. And so they don't stick out. We don't have what I would, in the past, we've had equity beliefs. I don't think that's necessary. I'll tell you why, because in our time, my 2 years here so far, we've doubled the number of minority employees that we've had in our district in a short period of time. And that's without even trying to do it. Okay. That's without even going in the interview and saying, I need somebody I need some diversity. That's not what we're trying to do. But we've been very successful with that and just making sure that we go out and hire the best people. And we've done a great job in attracting talent. The better we're doing with communication, the better we're doing with messaging, the better it attracts, the better candidates that are attracted by what we're doing as a district. And we've been very successful in doubling that number this past year. When you attend our welcome back ceremony, opening day, a lot more faces in there that you had never seen before, and that's a good thing. We need more kids, more adults that look like our kids. Was in Docky the other day, visiting Docky, and the IC, Miss Hayes, says, "Hey, I had to stop one of our kids from running up the stairs a few minutes ago, and I asked her, where are you running to?" And she says, "I'm going to go see the new teacher." And she said, "Why?" She says, "Because we have somebody that actually looks like me around here. I want to see her. I want to meet her." And Hayes says she was blown away by that statement. That's not the first time I've actually heard that statement. I heard it at West Milwaukee when we brought in tutors to assist with math last year. Mr. Thompson was bombarded by students that says, "You finally listened to me. You brought in more teachers that look like me." Right. It does the simplest of things that I don't think we really are paying attention to. We've been able to do that organically through our actions and through our work. And then at the same time, highlight student voice. That's been something that I've been committed to. I love the opportunity to engage with students when I visit campuses. At football games, I get to hear about everything that's going on. I'm like, okay, make it quick. Okay, good, glad. And hey, I smile and I keep going. But you know what? Next time I see them, I won't forget about what they told me. And so it is about trying to engage and give kids that audience. I want to be that person that the superintendent where these kids can say, you know what, I actually talked to him and he knows me. That makes me feel good because I think every kid is important. I really and truly do. But I think a lot of our kids don't feel that way. And so giving them that opportunity, that voice, to be approachable, I've encouraged all of our administrators to do the same thing. And at the same time, then looking at our family partnerships, district-wide collaboration. We focused on building cohorts of learning throughout our elementary schools where we can share across buildings the work that we're doing. Our principals will be engaging very, very soon in learning that's going to go from building to building where they can observe as well. Like we've been very intentional about collaboration over the last 2 years. And at the same time, not necessarily just focusing on responsibilities, but looking at how do we do this as an organization and creating organizational excellence. If we create organizational excellence, it will trickle down into the schools, and we strongly believe that. Next slide. And I miss anything? I feel like you're not helping me out tonight. I swear we prepare. We practice this. and who are we as a district? Okay, we thought this was important. Just keep in mind, these are the stats from last year's third Friday count, so they may be slightly off a little bit. 6,938 kids. We have, and that's pretty small up there, so I'm not going to dare read that. Thank you, Carolyn. You got it. So students with disabilities was around 16.7%, are economically disadvantaged at 65.7%. Multilingual learners, which is a growing population, is at a 5.7%, which is roughly around 6%. We have 66,000 residents in all four municipalities that we service, and we have 900 plus staff members. Real quick, I think what these numbers tell us is that we are a diverse district. We are the melting pot. When somebody asks me, tell me about your district, I say, look, when there's an election, national election, this is the place to be. Okay, this is the place to be, because everybody who's running for these offices, they know that we are a force in this particular area, and that's a force of diversity, a force of varying opinions, a voice of open-mindedness that I think a lot of areas around us are closed to. So I think we're lucky with that. Provides important context of understanding the environment in which our students learn. Supports equity-focused planning by ensuring that the district initiatives or resources are tailored to meet varied needs, and demonstrates transparency, accountability, and giving family, staff, and community a clear understanding of the student population. All right, the road ahead. Background, city of Milwaukee. That's the background. That is Milwaukee, right? All right, I just want to make a double check. Okay, I see the little lighthouse on the end. Yeah, that's Milwaukee. The road ahead. So this map, this road map, it builds on each other on an annual basis. And so the first year, which is building our future together. If you saw videos, if you were at the opening day ceremony, we all had on the neon shirts that resemble sort of what a construction crew would wear. Because in so many instances, so many examples or ways as a district, we are under construction, not only through our referendum success, but also the direction that we have right now as a strategic direction of the district, that we are sort of rebuilding ourselves and making sure that we have a plan in place for our kids to be successful. So that's the first year. Next year, in which we're already starting right now, accelerating access and achievement. We're working behind the scenes, and we'll talk about that a little later on as we go through the presentation, about building partnerships, increasing those opportunities for students. I want every single kid to have access to AP classes, dual credit classes were available. And so that's the plan that we're looking for the next year. And then deepening our impact for 27-28, elevating the experience for 28-29, and then thriving futures and measurable results. Kind of go into that. Keep going. Next slide real quick. So I feel like I'm going a long time. To break down a little bit more, 25-26, which is this year, strong foundational academics. We built a portrait of a graduate, and as well as universal SEL screenings for all of our students through SABRS. And then 26-27, accelerating access and achievement, increase academic opportunities, enhance interventions and enrichment, advancement for all students. Deepening the impact, 27-28, increase staff diversity, school climate, improve school safety and wellness. You heard it in Dr. Gottlieb's presentation. That's a focus. We're going to work over the years to make sure that we focus, but each year has sort of a different framework of narrowed in focus to build on. Elevating the experience, advanced educator retention. We've done I would think is a great job. We started the year with a little bit over 1% vacancy rate, just a tad bit over. And that was because we had 2 individuals who resigned the day school started. So that threw everything in for a loop. And so if you know anybody out there in land, I think Horace Mann has a 4th grade position, and Nathan Hill has a math position, algebra, right, Matt? Yes, algebra. So it's good as a superintendent when I can tell you where the vacancies are. Okay, that's a great thing. Okay, this is a pretty big district. Those are the only 2 I think in a regular ed setting that we have vacancies at. So, and that next, maximizing family and caregiver engagement, and then lastly is thriving futures and measurable results. We want to build on this and make sure at the end of 5 years that we are successful with the goals that we've set. All right, let me stop. So I feel like I need to stop, right? Any questions? Any questions?
Any questions yet from the board? They're
All
riveted.
right, Mr. Lee, I'm gonna call on you.
They're
Like
riveted.
you got a bunch of them over there. I'm ready for you though. I'm ready for you. All right. You're digesting. Okay. All right. All right. So as we built out the board goals, I wanted to kind of walk you through what I would say is the process that we undertook to get here. I had a couple of phone conversations with a gentleman named AJ Crable, and AJ Crable is sort of the guru of governance and board goals nationwide. He is the director of governance for Council of Great City Schools. I hit him up on LinkedIn. I said, "Hey, can I get on a call with you?" He didn't charge me. I said, "It's free." So I took advantage of it. And we talked through how do we go about building goals. And he told me, take a step back. You need to get the data, which I knew that already. We had already worked with Dr. Gottlieb to get all of the data we needed. And he walked me through how he would have us to suggest that we build out board goals. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through that particular process and what he advised us to do that'll kind of help you understand how we came about with these particular specific board goals that we developed. So we wanted to start out the board goal, and this is just an example. Okay, so just go with this example. So this example that we use is early literacy, the percentage of third graders reading on grade level on the school. That's blocking it. What does that say? School systems. Summative assessment will increase from 45% in July 2019 to 68% by July 2025. This is the example that he gave me. And he said, this is the board goal. He said, but what's important about this board goal is you need to establish an interim goal. So what is going to be the goal that you're going to measure, say, in a 2-year period to make sure that you're on target to achieve the goal up top? So our interim goal for this particular goal would be, an example would be the percentage of third graders who began the year below grade level in reading on school system benchmarks, but who are on track to grow by at least 1.5 grade levels in reading will increase from 20% in September 2020 to 50% by 2023. So if you notice, this interim goal is set up so we can be successful on the top goal, okay? So it's not working blind. You don't know, you're not measuring as you go. So that's an example he gave. And then he said, well, then you have to make sure that you identify what the inputs are. In other words, what are the strategies that you're using as a district to not only make your outcome, which is your board goal, come to fruition, but also that you're meeting your interim goal? And so these are examples of what he suggested are inputs, which would be the percentage of targeted second graders who receive a monthly average of additional 2 hours of support. So he's talking about the interventions that they will provide. Literacy coaching, the percentage of targeted teachers who are teaching targets 1st through 3rd grade and who are not rated highly effective in literacy instruction, who receive at least 20 hours per month in classroom coaching and modeling. So that's a professional development that you're providing to teachers who you've identified as needing it in order to make your goal come true. This is just an example. This is not what we're using, but I wanted you to understand the process that we had to take as a team. All these people to my left had to help me create these goals based on that particular format, okay? So let's get into our specific goals. So we set and established 4 goals. Goal number 1 is built around early literacy. Goal number 2 is built around mathematics. Goal number 3 is college and career readiness. Remember, that was a key point in the portrait of a graduate and understanding how we're preparing our kids for life. So we implemented that or included that, I should say. Then our students with disabilities. If number 4 is better, guess what happens to the rest of our data? That also improves. So just understanding how important our students with disability, the growth that they achieve is important to the bottom line of our student success overall as a district. So the school board goals are an integral part of the strategic plan guiding decision-making at the district level. These goals serve as a reference to ensure that the board decisions align and contribute to the district's long-term priorities. By using these goals as a guide, the board helps drive progress toward achieving key outcomes, and the goals provide transparency and accountability, making it clear how each decision supports the district's strategic plan. So let's get into these really quickly. Early literacy, percentage of 3rd grade students in West Allis, West Milwaukee School District earning proficient or advanced which are the highest two levels on the state of Wisconsin's forward exam in literacy, will increase from 30.3% in August 2025 to 45% in a 5-year period, which ends in August 2030. What we're saying is the highest levels of achievement will increase from 30 to 45%. That's what that goal is in early literacy, bottom line. Okay. You have anything you want to add to that? No. Okay, you're good. All right. And if you look at the process that we have right here, the interim goal we set is around FastBridge, because research shows that FastBridge should have a correlation with Forward, or at least that's how it's marketed to us. How about that? But there's a correlation between those particular assessments. And with our correlation that we're trying to make, we're saying we're basing our FastBridge on growth. And so then what are the inputs? We're looking at interventions, we're looking at coaching, and we're looking at curriculum implementations. So for interventions and monitoring, all students in K through 5 who receive intensive instruction will have personal support plans. We talked about that at previous meetings. When we identify a certain percentage of our score on our reading inventories, they're already queued to have personal reading plans. Okay. And we're doing the same thing for mathematics this year. We're identifying who those kids are and providing them supports they need to be successful. At the same time, we're looking at, from an instructional standpoint, learning walks to ensure that 80% of our classrooms are teaching curriculum. That's important because guess what? Curriculum is aligned to the actual assessments. Everything is aligned. If we are teaching what we want to teach, because that's what we want to teach, and we have no method to that madness, then our results are going to be just as all over the place as that idea is. So we have to make sure that what we're teaching aligns to what the kids are going to be assessed on. That's just bottom line. At the same time, coaching, understanding how are we coaching our people to be successful. I was at Horace Mann this morning. I don't want to pick on her. And I was talking to Dr. Mensloff over there, and she reminded me of a quote I told her. I said, every player can't be coached the same. She said, I have that written right here on my sticky note, right here on my computer, and I keep it there. That's the same thing with understanding coaching. Like, how are we identifying the areas of support that each person needs and making sure that we lean into that? If they don't need that, then what do they need? Understanding what they need and then providing that for them to be successful. And then curriculum. We spent a lot of time over the past 4 months in trying to shore up our curriculum and to make sure that we have a true guaranteed and valuable curriculum for our students to be successful. We spent a lot of time with that. And Alyssa and her department have done a yeoman's job in trying to make sure that we have alignment that is vertical and horizontal, as Dr. Gottlieb spoke on. That work has happened, as well as professional development. Not only are we creating a new aligned curriculum, but we're making sure that every staff member is trained on set curriculum so we can have that support out there in the field to make sure that they're successful in this implementation. That's been a lot of work over the past 4 months to make sure that happens. Now, we're going to go to, I won't repeat a lot of the stuff because a lot of the strategies will be the same, but for mathematics in particular, we're focusing on early literacy was 3rd grade. Mathematics, we're going to focus specifically on 8th grade. And if you know anything about the forward exam, 8th grade, it counts twice in 8th grade. So that's why we're focusing so heavily on 3rd and 8th. It counts twice 3rd grade, counts twice 8th grade for accountability. And so we're looking at the earning proficient or advanced. So those students will increase from 41% to 55% in a 5-year period. That's the goal that we're setting. Many of the strategies we talked about are the same with the personal support plan, as well as the professional development. We also talk about the use of new curriculum with Carnegie. I think it's going to be a huge shot in the arm for our secondary schools, that they have curriculum that's adoption that's up to date and more relevant now, and aligns more with the way the kids are going to be assessed on forward. When you hear from teachers and they say, yeah, We saw the forward exam and our kids, some of our kids struggle because I didn't spend a lot of time on that section because that hasn't been an emphasis in the past, because in our adoption, it doesn't really go into that. Adoption after 8-year period is really, really out of use in a sense, because these tests are updated in about a 3 or 4 year cycle. So in order to stay relevant and to make sure we're doing the right things, that Carnegie upgrade was definitely needed for that. Anything I'm missing on this? Okay, we're good. All right. Goal 3. When I tell you the opportunity we have with this area right here there's a lot of opportunity for us. I think this is what I would consider untapped potential in changing the lives and trajectory of a lot of our kids. I am admittedly a dreamer. I have dreams. I wake up at 3 a.m. and say, you know what, that's a great idea. Okay. Unfortunately, admittedly, I don't always have the skill set to make it happen. And so that's why I think I have to lean on a team and say, let me tell you about this crazy dream I had last night. How can we do this? And so a lot of the goals that you see, the goals you see on our college and career readiness, in talking with Robert, I say, Robert, don't run out of here, because we want to increase percentages for our report card for participation by type of post-secondary preparation. So there are 4 different categories that DPI looks at. That's advanced courses, industry recognized credentials, dual credit enrollment, and work-based learning. According to the 23-24, right, report card, I said it right, we only had 21% of our kids that were involved in one of those 4 categories. Okay. So our goal for this particular area is that we will increase from 21.3 to 45% in a 5-year time span. And I would tell you, I think that's the easiest goal that's up there. That's very doable. It's just a matter of us investing and making sure that we're using our money where where we can get more bang for our buck. Are we offering kids opportunities to have more options for their success? I've been on this tantrum for the past 3 or 4 days. They'll tell you I have not been happy, and I say that jokingly because I just don't. I believe that at times at school districts we are our own worst enemy and nightmare, because we create barriers that we don't intentionally create, but it's a result of things that we do. And so when I visit Docky and they tell me that, hey, the kids are going over to catch the bus because there are not certain offerings here at Docky and Central Kids, my question is, how can we do better? How can we remove those barriers? And so we're not quite prepared to tell you what we're going to do in the immediate future, but we are really trying to be creative in how we remove those barriers for kids to be successful. I told you guys when I interviewed, I don't believe in necessarily the achievement gap. I believe in the opportunity gap, and I want to close it. I want to close opportunity gaps by increasing opportunities for every single kid in our district to be successful and finding out what that is. So be looking for that, because when I come to you with that idea, don't look at me crazy. We have to do better. We have to do better. We have kids right now who are missing school because they're on buses and they're late for their 3rd period class. To me, we can do a lot better than what we're doing. And at the same time, increase the number of kids who are having those offerings. So that's the dynamic that I've been fussing about. I say that jokingly, but they know that's all I've been on lately. They're probably tired of hearing it from me. And the last one is our students with disabilities, our most precious commodity, those kids who, that their parents send us their very, very best. And it's our job as a district to make sure that they're successful. And looking at this particular goal, this is what we try to do through growth. Every single kid is expected to grow at minimum 1 year with solid education. We want to exceed that if possible, but that's where the aggressive growth comes in with our math fast bridge, that we're committed to making that happen through with our students with disabilities. All right, I'll stop. Pause, I should say. Been going an hour and 15 minutes. Go ahead. What questions do you have for me? I'll stop before I get into the key performance indicators.
Questions from the board?
Man, an hour and 15 minutes. Jesus.
I'll give you a little just to digest. Just
We good? No questions? Okay.
I don't see. Well, I do have one. I do. Do you want to go first though? Yeah. Yeah, as me as well. The question that I have, and as we're going through, and maybe we haven't gotten to it yet, but the piece that I have is that in education, you may have the best laid plans, and then they go sideways.
Sure.
And so kind of what I was wondering is what kind of feedback loop do we have to adjust and tweak? Because when we don't want to necessarily get pigeonholed into these goals if they aren't necessarily being met, or we find that we need to actually focus on something else in order to achieve our end.
Great question. Great question. I think that actually leads into the next section. And I'll talk about that. And then if I don't answer it directly, then I'll just tell me that still didn't get it. I'm good. I can take that from you.
Okay.
You tell me that all the time, so I'm used to it. Our college and career readiness. And so we look at our key performance indicators. KPIs are used at a committee level to understand and measure whether what you're doing is successful. Okay. Our committees, as they exist right now, will continue in that same form and fashion. And when we look at our committees, we will break them down into college and career readiness, communication and engagement, talent acquisition, employee engagement, and financial stability and efficiency. Those are the committees that will work and to measure whether we're successful. Each board committee will have key KPIs, as we call them, key performance indicators. KPIs provide measurable benchmarks that help committees assess whether they are meeting their goals. These indicators promote accountability, ensuring committee work aligns with the broader objectives of the district, and tracking KPIs allows the board and community to see tangible progress over time and informs data-driven decision-making. So we want to kind of go into this really quickly for the public and the board. And well, what's the board's role in trying to evaluate as we go whether we're successful or not? The board has a role in that. So go ahead and go to Carolyn's going to walk through her demonstration.
So this is just an example of how we'll keep track of our KPIs. Just at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. You can't see the end of the year because I cut that out of the snapshot, but just identifying where the goal is at. Is it in progress? Is it not met? Or is it completed? And then taking down any notes and feedback. Obviously, as we get started, most of these goals will be in progress. And so the notes and feedback section is going to be really critical so that we can adjust our plan accordingly if we're not making the progress that we need to make. And so this will be filled out 3 times a year over the course of the next 5 years. So 15 times total.
Does that answer your question a little bit? A little bit? Okay. I think what I would add to that is this is a living document. Okay. It's not something we'll put on the website and say, hey, here it is. We'll holler at it in 5 years. That's not how we're going to use this. This is going to be sort of again, it's a roadmap to let us know if we're heading in the right direction, if we're meeting everything that we say. And there's not going to be a hesitation on my part to say, this is not working. We need to make an adjustment. I think that's what in this particular business, if we can forecast everything to be perfect at the end, I think we're fooling ourselves to say that everything will be perfect. But we have to understand what the data is saying to us through our KPIs, and then evaluate that, and we'll determine whether that needs to be changed. Our principals will play an important role in that. Our PTA will play an important role in it. Our union will play it. All of those groups who we brought in to get feedback from will provide us feedback as we go along. In addition to surveys, like Dr. Gottlieb and his team, this is not a one-time shop thing. They will be in charge of creating, which they've already started, our surveys that will go out next month, right? October, next month, yeah. Next month. So we have our first rounds of surveys that will be going out for parents and teachers, right? Staff? Yeah, parents and staff will go out next month. So we are really trying to make sure that we keep our ears to the streets in a sense. And we understand whether we're doing, a good job of what of the direction that we want those numbers that he showed up there. We want those numbers to improve. So those are sort of like, those are our benchmarks in a sense, and we'll have more data as we progress to assess whether we are being successful or not. I just wanted to kind of highlight a couple things. So with the college and career readiness in particular, we have goals around ACT, attendance rate, graduation, safety, SEL, special education. Those other goals that you saw earlier with math, ELA, those are included. Communications and engagement have goals around the monthly newsletter. Is it the open rate of those weekly newsletters, parent engagement, as well as our social media. Talent acquisition and employee engagement, we'll be able to understand our diversity within our district, our employee engagement through the survey, exit surveys. And Mr. Lee has been on me about that one too. We'll be able to do that. We've engaged with Frontline now, and so Frontline is going to be assisting us with creating systems around how do we collect that data. Why are people leaving? We just can't say it's salary. We really will understand through the support of Frontline, why teachers are not being retained. And then our vacancy rate. We talked about that a little earlier, that I think my first year, we were at 7% to start the year. And through Dee, Janet, and Zach, to say that we are within 1% to start the year for the last 2 years, I think that's a great thing. I want to be below that 1%. I was a little upset at those people that left the last minute. It's not HR's fault. These are new people we hired and just did not show up. So it is what it is. But we already found new candidates to fill those positions. So just a process. And our financial stability and efficiency. This was an interesting conversation with Aaron, because I think for the past, I would say 5 years, he's been so focused on improving our financial status. And I think he's done an excellent job of doing that. But his was the hardest one to push, because he threw out first, he was talking about, well, we the audit. That's a data point. Yeah, but how does that deal with the goals though, Aaron? So it was like, Aaron, how are you improving goals? So I said, Aaron, what about the amount of money we spend on literacy? What about the amount of money we spend on mathematics? What about the amount of money we spend on CTE? How can we increase the amount of funding we have for special education? These are specific funding mechanisms that we're trying to improve over a 5-year period. If we expect results, we have to invest in those things a little bit more. Those results for CTE will not happen if we don't invest those dollars into creating new programs, new opportunities for our students. That's just an example how every committee will be supporting the 4 goals that are up earlier around within our strategic plan. So next steps. Our board committees will meet and quarterly to discuss the key performance indicators and evaluate those. We have implementing a new curriculum centered around priority standards this year, scope and sequence, as well as common assessments. We have win time built into the school day, visiting schools last week. I saw it in action, as well as some of the collaborative work that school started on day 1, just trying to make sure, are we having those conversations? Are we building the best lessons for students when they show up in our classrooms, and building that camaraderie within their teams? Our sensory rooms within our buildings, trying to make sure that those things are up. Now, how are we using them? How are we using them to de-escalate problems? We know that students who have autism, they definitely need those sensory activities to de-escalate them and calm them down. So that's what we've tried to do within our elementary schools and some of our secondary schools as well. And then our EMLSS is redesigned to support academic and behavioral needs. We'll be fully rolling it out at the end of this month to our principals, because at that particular time, we'll have new data from our first round of our Fast Bridge this year. So we'll be able to identify which kids are flagged according to the new data. And last, I put up here closing gaps by creating opportunities. This is, I think, an area that our district, everybody in the district wants to happen. We want our kids to have opportunities. We want our kids to be successful. And we are a system that has to be committed to making it happen and to expose them. So I met with Dr. Cruz on last week. He invited me to his office and we had a nice cup of coffee and good conversation. And we both committed to having a true partnership. And some of the things we talked about is strengthening our CNA program within our district. There's a need for that. Also, we've discussed possibly having cosmetology infused within our district. So those are some things that we're having some serious conversations around. And how do we provide students with that? Again, I pay $45 for a haircut. I think it's ridiculous. Okay, it's ridiculous. Like you don't even see any evidence of it. I don't even have any hair. Okay, but that is the going rate. Like this is ridiculous. But I'm not even mad. I pay my barber because guess what? I have an appointment. I know what time I'm going. I get out on time because my wife doesn't know how to text me. Where are you? I'm out on time. And it's the going rate. Why can't our kids come out making $45 an hour? $45 for 30 minutes. Not even an hour. So these are some things that I'm thinking about and trying to figure out how to get done. I think that's where we are at the point of execution. Also, our dual credit offerings within our high school buildings. These are the conversations that are going to be built into year 2. That's why we're doing it right now. So when we have course selections, all of this stuff is already done. So we're working a year out to make sure that happens. No excuses. I'm tired of talking about this dream I had. It's time to make these dreams come true. Okay. So we have to be about action at this particular point. Increase the AP offerings for students through the use of Flex AP, or as I call it, Fusion AP Fusion. We'll have more details on that because the definition of fusion is mixing 2 or 3 things together to make one thing. And we have the capacity within our district to make that happen. There should not be any excuse because a kid attends Central or attends Docky, they can't take a class. That does not sit well with me. I'm not, and vice versa. A kid that goes to hell can't take a class because it's not offering help. That does not sit well with me. How do we remove that? We are our own worst enemy when we come to the barriers we create. We create those for ourselves. So I'm committed to knocking those down. Also, the big conversation, specialty programming within our schools. We will start that conversation very, very soon. Because if this is going to happen, some are going to be more on a 2-year implementation. Some will be on possibly next year. We need to evaluate through our community participation and feedback what other programs that they would like to see happen within our schools. We have programs I think that are what I would say are self-sufficient right now. Our fine arts program, I think I would put them side by side against anybody, right? But just imagine if we did a better job of just really investing in it. I don't think Mary Pat Michaels would disagree with that. Like invest in it and make it a priority. And I think that needs to happen. Our theater program the same way. Like there are ways that we can strengthen those things, which we say are the best part of our district. We need to strengthen those programs. And I'm looking at programming within schools, making them specialty schools. Can we make it happen? That's part of my dream. I'm a dreamer, guys. I'm sorry. Ms. Carr, what's your question? I'm sorry.
All right, so now it's time for my plug based on what you just said. Specialty things, maybe even a fusion of something. I have not heard the sciences mentioned at all. And I know that, literacy and math are the fair-haired child, and I get that. And we're tested on that and so on and so forth. But is there a way we can incorporate the sciences and bring them to the front line? And I know that if we make it a goal, we're going to pay more attention to it. We're going to give it more credence. So just wondering.
No, so I agree with you 100%. I don't think it was mentioned in here because quite honestly, It was not on purpose that we left it out. It was not. But I think, honestly, if you have someone who's good in math, then they will be successful. They probably have an interest as well as science. So it kind of goes hand in hand. A lot of science is math. So I think we were trying to tie it that way.
Right.
But with the specialty program, and I can't disagree with you, I've seen STEM programs, I've seen engineering components, I've seen various components of that. It's something that we can look in. Is Aaron still here? Did he leave? Okay. We need some money. Okay. All right. I had to say that. Like, it's gonna require some investment.
Yeah.
When we do. So I'm thinking, to be honest with you, on if we're able to make something happen next year, it won't be that big of a shift financially. 2 or 3 years, it'll be more complex and will require much more investment when we talk about money and resources. So on a long-term plan, absolutely, it should happen, 100%. But I will say this too. I think it's important also to get feedback on I don't want it to be a Terrence Robinson decision. I want it to be interest of what the kids in the community wants as well.
Mr. Lee.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I know we did a community survey about this. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but we did do one like 3 or 4 years ago asking that very question. And the reason why there was no movement on it was because there wasn't anything that was overwhelmingly from the community parent student perspective, something that they wanted to do.
Sure.
A STEM academy was one thing that was brought up. It was one thing that a subset of parents and students had a very big interest in. But because there wasn't a high enough percentage from that feedback, that's where there was kind of no movement. Because yes, there is an investment, and there would be, I would think, partnerships that we'd want to look into with, other institutions of higher learning, as well as maybe some companies and businesses that would be hopefully willing to put in some money to help establish something like that.
Absolutely.
But yes, so I think having a fresh survey of that information could be helpful to then direct, because then I think you're taking subsets of the district to then say, okay, we need to get business partners, we need to get higher partnerships from higher learning, and community partnerships as well, to be able to help fill this up, because the finances there, unless things change at the state level, are probably not going to be extra that we can do exactly what we'd want to do. But if we compare that with other monies that we can get from other entities, I think that is something that we certainly could absolutely do. And it builds excitement within the community when you can do something like that.
So we've already made contact with We Energies and Aurora, in particular, when we talk about sciences and engineering, and they want to talk to us. They really want to have a discussion. In particular, We Energies, they have a shortage of, and I'm going to mess up what the title is, but it's the person that runs the lines, the power lines. There's a shortage, but it's a well-paid position. Okay. And you probably know why it's a shortage, because it's dangerous, right? There's a shortage. And I was speaking to one of the gentlemen who's my fraternity brother, who's actually manager of customer service with We Energies. And he says, look, we got to talk. This is an opportunity where we can pay for kids to go to school and then hire them after they finish. And I said, yes, we need to talk. So these are conversations that I've already had. And again, when I mentioned earlier the CNA program, I have this vision. Aurora is probably next to us, or right about close to us, one of the largest employers in the city. And I think it's untapped potential. When you talk about the CNAs, nurses, there's a shortage, a critical shortage. Okay. How can we help you fill this shortage, and you help us at the same time? Because it's a win-win for everybody. But of course, we need some support. When I visited along with Jody and Alyssa and other people, we visited Brookfield Central, right? Is that Central or East? It's East. I get the schools mixed up. Thank you. East. And I saw their CNA lab. And if you know Mark Hansen, Dr. Hansen over there, he's a show off. So he says, just let me take you in this lab. And I said, okay, doc, what you got? And I was like, wow, it looked like a real hospital. And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, so what do they use these hospital beds for? They have mannequins. Oh, this is like real work. Like they are really, okay. He was in real show out form. I want to be at that level where I can show off something like that and know that we are benefiting a field that is short on people. And you got to think about it too. That's actually a win-win for us because if they're a CNA, guess what? They can come work for us as an EA for with a CNA license and get paid at the highest levels of an EA. Like it's a win-win. So thinking along those lines, I just think there's some untapped potential in what we have to do. But that will require us to make some commitments though. As far as the data is concerned, I think the 4 years is probably too long. And Dr. Gobley will tell you, yeah, it's old data. A lot of things have changed since then. I think there's much more positivity towards us. I don't get as nearly crazy emails as I used to get. I think they actually like us now, just being funny. But it's just it's a good vibe that goes on. I mean, are we there yet? Absolutely not. We have a long way to go. But we've done a pretty good job in trying to build trust back in the district. And I think engaging them in another opportunity to provide some feedback to us will be beneficial for us. Oh, Thursday. Go ahead.
Just one more thing. Are we, when do we approve the strategic plan as a board? And what is the plan for communicating this to the community once it's approved? And then, as you said, these waypoints that we're checking in on what we're doing or not and communicating that to the community as well.
Okay. So great question. So I'm asking for approval tonight if possible. If you need time to digest and we move for approval at the next meeting, that's fine as well. That's the first question. The second question is we will go on sort of a tour of sorts to roll this out, to let everyone know. It will not probably, I'm just looking at time, it won't be every school, but we'll make a commitment to get out to as many schools as we can to roll out the plan. How that will look, whether we will focus on, after school with parents or focus on staff meetings, we really have not decided that. But it will be some format of communication verbally, as well as this will be full on the website. In fact, if you go to the roadmap real quick, your little cars. I know they are traveling west. Yeah. So this right here will not necessarily be as visual. They will be able to just click a grade level and they'll pop up. The goals for each grade level will pop up. So that'll be sort of like the visual. This will be on the website. But again, we're at the point where we're not having listening sessions. It's more of a information and talking about, how they can use this as an at-home tool to make sure their kids are successful and on the track to being successful in life.
Okay. I would just make a possible suggestion of maybe including this as part of our annual report as well. When we're doing those, we're checking in on those goals.
Right?
The annual report for this last school year is already completed.
Right.
We did allude to it in that, but it wasn't approved at the time. So this will certainly be included in the next annual report. I would add, in addition to connecting with staff and families in person via meetings, this will live on our website. We do have a section in our rights and responsibilities handbook specifically on the strategic plan. So it's already in the rights and responsibilities handbook. And then a communication and social media posts and all those kind of typical channels that we use.
Great. And I think the whole strategic plan is one piece, but again, I think for the annual report specifically, I was thinking more along the lines of, this was the goal that we set and here's the check-in that we did and this is where we're at.
I got you.
So I see that as part of the annual report is reporting we had these goals. Did we get there? Did we not? If not, here's the things we're trying to do to try to address that. And if we did, awesome. Now we're moving on to these next steps to try to expand upon those things.
That goes a long ways for transparency. So I agree with you.
Yeah. And then it allows people to then who have no idea what's going on in their schools to kind of see the things that we're doing if they're getting that report. I guess that's where I was kind of looking at it. Because it's very lengthy. I don't know if they would look at it if you had the whole thing in there. But if you're like, here's the goals that we
The big
throughout
stuff,
the
yep.
year we looked at, and this is where we're at for the first year of the strategic plan. As far as approving it tonight, it wasn't noticed for, and I don't know if we can, because we can't take action on it because we.
You're correct. So it'll be an action item next
Yeah.
meeting. You're correct.
That was all. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so thank you. And yeah, I was going to ask the same thing after you mentioned. But are there any other comments or even maybe celebrations, likes, accolades of what we're seeing and where we are with what's been presented tonight? Good.
I appreciate the effort. And if I didn't say it on camera before, I thought the annual eval looked great. So thanks to the committee and to the team for the work on that.
Okay.
I would ask if there's something that you see as you go through it, just send us a note. And the more eyes we have, the better the product will be before it goes out. We want to get all of those things. So if there, we'll take your feedback. And that's still open because it hasn't been approved. So still open for business here.
Could I ask also then that any of the questions or things that come back, any response gets sent to all the board members so that we keep that continuous with that?
Yeah. So what I'll do is if I get a question or comment from a board member, I'll include it in my Friday note to you guys so everybody's aware of what the question was, and I'll try to provide an answer.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right. Anything else? Yeah, thank you for the hard work. I think that brings us to the end of the workshop then. Thank you so much. And thank you all of you for being here. All right. And I guess with that, hang on, ladies and gents, board members, for a moment. If there is no further business and there is no objection, the meeting will be adjourned for this evening.
Apparently, yes. So,
Hearing no objection, we are adjourned.